coffee and they hand you a large for the same price? Well, that's what the heroes at Zeres are doing this month. Get a free size upgrade on every whole home air duct cleaning package. You pay for standard, you get the next size up. More vents, more returns, more fresh air. After winter in Indiana, your ducts need it and your home needs it the most. Call 317-388-5141, ZeroResIndy.com, and ask for the WIBC special.
The Attorney General's Office, reuniting Hoosiers with over $1 million in unclaimed property every week. Visit IndianaUnclaimed.gov or text Tony Katz to 46220 today.
What's up on your crawl space? Do you know? I bet we do. Swankco Crawl Space and Basement Repair. Indy's most trusted. SwankcoLLC.com.
Big, beautiful gas prices. The next increase for many stations across Indiana could go up to $3.69. Hey, it's Casey. Join us Wednesday, 9 until noon on 93 WIBC.
Iran keeps fighting back on day 12 of the war.
93 WIBC.
The U.S. has destroyed 16 Iranian mine-laying boats.
What happens next?
Price of oil is up this morning to about $85 a barrel.
Happens here.
Tornadoes have twisted areas apart in Indiana.
This tornado moved through last night.
Stay in the know.
Damaging winds still likely to be the main concern with these storms.
While you're on the go.
A wind is gusting at 45 miles an hour.
On air, online, and on Alexa.
In 2 minutes, weather warnings and watches for today. We'll have more from the National Weather Service as the morning goes on. Also, the tornadoes that touched down in Indiana last night, where another shooting in Indianapolis happened that involved a teenager, and who IU will play in tonight's Big Ten tournament. Those stories and more coming up after Fox News. From the Dugan Air Heating and Cooling Mitsubishi Electric Studios, you're listening to 93 WIBC, WIBC HD1 Indianapolis.
We just got a key update to the economy. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. The inflation report for February coming in just like predicted.
Month over month, a gain of 0.3% expected. Year over year, a gain of 2.4%. That's the annual rate. Again, year over year as expected. That's also the previous number we got for January CPI.
That's Fox Business Network's Cheryl Casoni. This check of consumer prices, though, is pre-war inflation. The price of oil is back up to $87 a barrel this morning. Gas is up another 4 cents. AAA's national average for regular, 59 cents higher than before the conflict started. And Iran keeps trying to disrupt fuel supplies, bombing 3 cargo ships in the Strait of Hormuz. They've also been putting mines in that strait. The U.S. has destroyed 16 Iranian mine-laying boats. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum just told Fox.
President Trump has made it very clear the consequences if they try to do that. And there's a lot of options between ourselves and our allies in the region, including our Arab friends in the region, to make sure that those straits keep open and that energy keeps flowing.
And Iran's also been firing drones into Gulf countries that have been shot down. And
overnight, more Iranian ballistic missiles soared through the skies of central Israel. Even just a few minutes ago, we had sirens here in the second largest city of Tel Aviv. Many missile interceptions taking place overnight.
Fox's Trey Yingst also reports from Tel Aviv.
Thousands of targets in Iran being hit by U.S. and Israeli planes. The Israelis telling Fox News just about an hour ago they launched a new round of strikes against Iran and Hezbollah positions.
Now, Fox's Steve Harrigan's in Armenia near the Iran border.
From Iran's chief of police, a stern warning to his own people, saying that any protesters out on the street will be treated like enemy combatants, that they will be killed. He said security forces have their fingers on the triggers.
This after a crackdown on protests before the war killed thousands in Iran. At least 2 people dead in Lake Village, Indiana after a tornado hit. Also damage across in Illinois. America's listening to Fox News.
93 WIBC Mobile News. On the level, on the go.
A severe morning thunderstorm. Cloudy skies, 68 right now in the Circle City. It won't get much warmer as a severe thunderstorm warning has now been extended until 9:45. A tornado watch remains in effect for much of the state until noon. I'm Jarrett Lewis. It's 9:02. Severe weather over portions of central Indiana this morning as a line of thunderstorms moves across the area. Pockets of strong wind gusts coming with it, as strong as 60 miles per hour, along with isolated tornadoes possible too. Forecaster Mike Ryan at the National Weather Service.
Damaging winds still likely to be the main concern with these storms, but there's enough shear turning in the atmosphere that the potential for some isolated tornadoes is there, and that's the reason the tornado watch was issued. And again, it covers really the southern two-thirds of the state through noon.
Along with the tornado watch, a wind advisory runs until 5 p.m. today. At least 4 tornadoes confirmed to have hit in Illinois and into Indiana last night, causing trees and power lines to fall in the northwest part of the state. The small town of Lake Village in Newton County was hit.
North Newton Junior High School, they are opening for anybody that was displaced from this. North Newton School is sending a bus to Lake Township Fire on the north end of Lake Village to transport anyone that was displaced.
Newton County Sheriff Shannon Cothran speaking there, and as first reported just a few minutes ago by Fox News, at least 2 people have been confirmed dead. Officials won't know the exact number of twisters until damage surveys are completed. Heavy storms are also causing flooding in several areas, too. A 15-year-old boy is injured after being shot Tuesday night on the far east side of Indianapolis. Police say it happened just after 9 p.m. at the Amber Woods Apartments. Officers found the teenager with the gunshot wound and took him to a hospital. He was reported to be in stable condition. Officers don't have any other information about the incident, such as a suspect. Up another cent today. The average price of gas in Indiana at $3.50 per gallon, according to AAA. The national average is at $3.58. And the first game of the Big Ten tournament coming up tonight for the Indiana Hoosiers, a tournament that has not been kind to the Hoosiers in the past. Head coach Darren DeVries.
Our whole message is just keep preparing and put yourself in the best position possible to go out and play well.
They take on Northwestern, who beat Penn State last night in Chicago. The Hoosiers need a deep run in order to help their chances of making the NCAA tournament. Purdue awaits the winner of tonight's game for tomorrow. And now we have WIBC traffic with Matt Baer.
You got it, Jarrett. Looking at the northwest side crash. Northbound 465 after I-65. 2 left lanes are blocked. Traffic is stopped back to I-74. Delay of 23 minutes. South side northbound 65 jammed into construction from South Keystone Avenue past Raymond Street. A delay of 12 minutes. On the east side northbound 465 stop and go traffic from 70M to Penn Pike. Southbound 465 a little bit tight from 74 to Arlington Avenue. Traffic sponsored by WeatherBug. Get the fastest local alerts and accurate 24/7 forecast with WeatherBug. It's easy to use, so the weather never takes you by surprise. Download the free WeatherBug app today. I'm Matt Baer with traffic on the 5s. Follow us at WIBC Traffic.
Roll the windows down, turn the music up, and cruise into spring with auto loan rates as low as 3.99% APR for 48 months at Financial Center. Whether you're buying or refinancing, you'll save every month. Plus, you'll enjoy no payments for your first 90 days. Start now at fcfcu.com/auto. That's fcfcu.com/auto. Financial Center, your credit union for what's next. Subject to underwriting guidelines. See website for terms and conditions.
Oil lights never come on at a good time. You've got enough to juggle, so let Take 5 handle it. Drive in, stay in your car, and roll out in 10 minutes. No waiting room, no stress, just fast, friendly service. Visit Take5.com today to find your nearest shop.
Haven't met your goals? At Low T Center, they're extending their free testosterone test. No risks, no commitments, just answers.
Low T Center works with the most insurance plans and continues as the most trusted name in TRT. Book that appointment right now at lowtcenter.com.
More of the forecast from the American Standard Heating Weather Center.
Scattered showers and thunderstorms both this morning and this afternoon. Some of those storms could be severe with falling temperatures into the mid-50s later this afternoon. I'm Storm Track 8 meteorologist Marcus Bailey for 93 WIBC.
And again, that severe thunderstorm warning lasting until 9:45 a.m. for much of central Indiana. We'll have more as the morning goes on, so stick it right here to 93 WIBC. I'm Jarrett Lewis on the level, on the go, and on WIBC.com.
Good morning and thanks for being here. My name is Casey. That is Jim, and we are watching the weather for you in our effort to help you stay informed and stay safe. Of course, we have Jarrett Lewis, who will be standing by at the Chapman Heating and Air Conditioning Storm Desk all morning. As he just mentioned, that thunderstorm warning extended till 9:45. We do have that tornado watch until noon across all of central Indiana. I'm looking at the radar right now, and Beech Grove is really getting hit hard right now. Warren Park and 465, 74. It looks like this major axis of the storm is passing over Indianapolis right now, and of course it is heading east, but there is still a lot of rain behind it, and we want you to be aware and be safe, and some basic emergency kit items as we're going through this: flashlight, batteries, water, phone charger, first aid kit, and the one item that is underrated is shoes. Many people get injured after walking through debris or broken glass or things that have fallen out in the yard. Okay. We're off the air right now because of.
Okay.
We are going to blame it on the rain today. We're going to blame everything on the rain today. Blame everything on severe weather. It's kind of nice to have a built-in excuse.
Right. Be late for work. Maybe don't even go into work. Any sort of chores you need to do. I can't do that. There's severe weather. I've got to be on alert.
Yeah, that's true. So we're keeping an eye on the severe weather. Thunderstorm warning has been extended until 9:45. You got a tornado watch in effect for most of central Indiana until noon. And as I was checking out the radar earlier, it looks like a big portion of the storm heading east already over Indianapolis, Beech Grove and Warren Park. If you're on 465 right now, you are definitely driving through some rain. So turn the lights on, keep the windshield wipers going, and definitely be safe. Some items to keep around if you're at home: the flashlight, batteries, water, a phone charger, shoes. Shoes is a big one. That is the underrated safety tip. People can sometimes get injured when they're surveilling their property, looking for damage. Make sure you've got those shoes on. Or if you have to get inside an interior portion of the building, just make sure you have those shoes. Many people say wear long pants as well because you don't want to get any cuts or injuries on your legs. But get to the lowest level of the building. Basement is best. If no basement, a small interior room on the lowest floor, a bathroom, a closet, a hallway. Obviously, stay away from windows and exterior walls. You want to cover your head and neck. I can recall one severe storm here in Indianapolis where we were sitting in the garage wearing motorcycle helmets.
Yeah.
That's the best we could come up with.
Yeah, our place that we're currently living in doesn't have a basement, and that was the most secure area with no windows around us, and it did make a lot of sense. But you're right, Casey. I'm looking at the radar right now, and there's kind of this line of storms that runs from the north east down to the southwest. So think of this line that runs from like McCordsville, Lawrence, down to Beech Grove and down to Greenwood. You guys are in the middle of it right now. If you're east of that, the storm is coming your way. But downtown Indianapolis,
Muncie is taking it right now as well.
and downtown Indianapolis and west has seen the worst of it go by us. But here's the problem with that: there's still a lot of heavy rain that's coming through Avon and Brownsburg, and all day long, what is likely going to be things that we're going to have to be the most on top of is the high winds and gusty winds. We could be seeing winds up to 60 miles an hour, and there is that tornado watch that is in effect for most of central Indiana until noon this morning.
Yeah, so we've got this warm, humid Gulf air. It's colliding with this colder air, and it's moving in from the west. And Indy sits in this perfect clash zone for storms. You've got warm moisture meeting colder air, and then that is just making everything explode as we're seeing right now. And Shelbyville is about to take on some severe weather. in just moments. It's already looks like Fishers and Lawrence have seen the worst of this line. But you've also got Rushville that's on deck and Connorsville, and just keep it here. We've got Jarrett Lewis from the Chapman Heating and Air Conditioning Storm Desk standing by, and he will keep us up to date as we keep an eye on this severe weather through all of central Indiana. You're listening to Casey and Jim. It is 93 WIBC.
Hammer and Nigel.
3,364 children found by ICE.
Don't forget, lost under Biden and cartels enabled with his open border policies.
The Wine Moms meetings in Westfield, they're not going to talk about this. 3,364. If my tax dollars are going to be spent, I'm fine with that.
Hammer and Nigel, weekdays 3 till 7 on 93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
You love spring and indies, so don't spend it painting. Do what your neighbor Mike did. He called Rhino Shield.
Our home is basically a contemporary, and we just started noticing that the paint was just fading and just looked like garbage. We had received a postcard from Rhino Shield, and we decided to take a look at it.
Rhino Shield's formulated for our specific climate here in Indiana.
The process with Rhino Shield and their crew, they were just very conscientious. We had problems in the past with painters. They leave debris and everything. Well, we didn't have that with Rhino Shield.
Way better than paint, backed by a 25-year warranty. Right now, get the guaranteed protection of Rhino Shield for 15% off the regular price.
The thing about Rhino Shield, the heat gain has been reduced, and we save $70 a month. You don't hear that about any type of paint.
Here's Rhino Shield's Shane Smith.
This offer is limited, so call me at 888-RHINO-41. That's 888-RHINO-41.
Don't paint.
Don't vinyl.
Go Rhino!
Paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
Spring is fast approaching and a great time for a new Lincoln at Tom Roush Lincoln in Fishers. 0% financing is back. That's right, 0% for 48 months on new Corsair, Nautilus, and Aviator. Plus 0% for 36 months on new Navigator. With these rates, it's absolutely the best time to buy. Be sure to check them all out at Tom Roush Lincoln in Fishers. Our family serving yours since 1972.
0% APR for 48 months on 2026 Lincoln Corsair, Nautilus, and Aviator. 0% APR for 36 months on 2025 Lincoln Navigator. Subject to credit approval. Offers end 3/31/26. See dealer for complete offer details.
State Senator Jim Buck is 80 years old, and decades in politics and government have changed him. Maybe once he voted like a conservative, but he's changed. How else can you explain why Senator Buck voted with liberal Democrats in Indianapolis to oppose President Trump's agenda on congressional redistricting? Or why Jim Buck voted to let China own Hoosier farmland, putting Hoosier families at risk? Or why Jim Buck voted to raise our gas tax, increasing your pain at the pump, against Trump, letting China own our land, increasing the gas tax. It's a pathetic and sad pattern, a sign of a politician who's been in office too long. Call State Senator Jim Buck at 317-232-9400. Tell him 32 years in politics and government is enough. Support Trump's policies or retire already. Paid for by Hoosier Leadership for America.
You've probably heard all those ads for life insurance. Just a few dollars a day, apply online in minutes, no medical exam. Simple, easy, and cheap, right? Now you're thinking, maybe I should get a quote. Well, smart thinking. Everyone should have life insurance. But here's what they don't tell you. Those few dollars a day rates, they're for young people in perfect health. That's why everyone calls Big Lou the 50 to 60-year-old not-so-perfect candidate. Like you. You take prescription meds and you're overweight. Winner, winner, fried chicken dinner. Well, Big Lou works with life insurance companies that want people like you with no surprises after you apply. In fact, if you're a 50-year-old guy with a few health glitches, Lou could probably find you $1 million of term life coverage for about $200 a month. So, yeah, you need life insurance. But unless you're young and healthy, you gotta call Big Lou because he's like you, older, heavier, and on meds, too. Get a quote right now at 800-529-2856. 800-529-2856 or biglou.com.
For 22 years, Exercise Inc. has helped Hoosiers build muscle, lose weight, and transform their health, creating lifelong habits. Only takes 20 minutes once a week. Visit exerciseinc.com.
Hey, your basement called. It said, waterproof me. So, call Swankco. 317-407-1868. SwankcoLLC.com.
Well, first and foremost, this has been a highly successful operation. And this briefing today, all of the briefings that we've received in the Senate has shown us that we've wiped out most of the ballistic missiles in Iran. We've wiped out most of their Navy. You heard Steve Witkoff, the special envoy, say just a couple of hours ago, we've wiped out almost all of their uranium enrichment. That's the primary goal of this operation. President Trump is a great commander-in-chief, one of the best that we've ever had. He's developed a strong coalition of allies in Europe and in the Middle East to assist in this operation. And it's my hope, as the president has said yesterday, that this operation lasts for a very short period of time. We accomplish what we need to and turn this country back over to its people.
So that is Indiana Senator Jim Banks talking about Donald Trump, and also the Secretary of War Pete Hegseth saying that they've overseen a very successful operation in Iran, U.S. destroying 16 Iranian vessels. This amid worries of mines in the Strait of Hormuz. We'll get to more of that in just a bit. But right now, let's check in with WIBC's Jarrett Lewis from the Chapman Heating and Air Conditioning Storm Desk. Good morning.
Good morning,
This
Casey.
is a severe weather alert from the Chapman Heating and Air Conditioning Storm Desk.
Good morning, Casey and Jim. Thanks, guys. Yes, we are tracking the severe weather that is rolling through the state this morning. A severe thunderstorm warning is in effect until towards the end of this hour. Right now, a tornado watch is still also out there. It is being issued until at least noon, with 18 counties listed in central Indiana under this tornado watch. They are Bartholomew, Decatur, Hancock, Johnson, Madison, Rush, Shelby, Delaware, Henry, Randolph, Brown, Jackson, Lawrence, Monroe, Jennings, Davies, and Martin. Strong wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour. So we continue to watch this severe thunderstorm warning, the severe storm, this severe weather that is rolling through the state this morning. We will have more as the day goes on. From the WIBC Storm Desk, I'm Jarrett Lewis.
Thank you, Jared. Of course, a simple rule of thumb: watch means be ready. Warning means take shelter immediately. And Jarrett will be joining us throughout the morning to keep us updated on the severe weather we're experiencing here in central Indiana. Some other things that we have coming up this morning. The House approved the plan to require proof of citizenship to vote last month, 218 to 213. But as is often the case, the hurdle is in the Senate, specifically the Senate filibuster. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt says the Save America Act does not prohibit anyone from voting, with the exception of illegal aliens.
And as far as married women who have changed their name, if they're already registered to vote, they're entirely unaffected by the SAVE Act. And for the small fraction of individuals who have changed their name or their address, they can still register to vote. Of course, they just have to go through their state processes to update that documentation.
Another story we're going to work on this morning, we'll sprinkle it in between our weather updates. The blue state exodus. 3 major companies are leaving blue states for red ones, like Yamaha Motor Corporation. Yeah, they're moving their headquarters to Georgia beginning later this year. The company had operated in Southern California since 1980. Plus, we're going to have an obvious study about motorcycle helmets, which are very good to wear during a severe weather situation. I have proof I've done that in the past. And finally this morning, PetSmart answered the question, because we need answers, and it can't be both.
Is it PetSmart or PetSmart? Are you saying that pets are smart? Or are you saying you're a mark for pets? I need answers!
Yeah, and it can't be both. But let's get back to what's going on with Iran. So you've got the reports that Iran was deploying mines to disrupt the Strait of Hormuz, and then U.S. destroyed 16 Iranian vessels and worrying about the mining. So this is a somewhat of a familiar dynamic, a limited supply slowly expanding like this. It just shows that regional wars can become long wars, and you can shift the justification along the way.
We'll find out how big of a threat this really is. It does seem like everything old is new again, because when I heard about this story, it reminded me about, certain conflicts that we had with Iran, or tensions that we had with Iran back in the 80s, and that would be the first thing they would do. They would start throwing a bunch of mines in the Straits of Hormuz, and it was always a concern, and there were actually some ships that were destroyed because of that. But this is the United States has prepared for this. We know about this. We always knew that this would be a possibility because this is kind of Iran's last-ditch effort. Because, by the way, who gets hurt the most by closing down the Strait of Hormuz?
Iran.
Is Iran.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the vast majority of all of their exports and anything that they're sending overseas goes through the Straits of Hormuz. So you know that when they start mining the strait, that they're in a desperate situation, which obviously bodes well for the United States and our military efforts there. And I think that we've just got to, seems like a lot of panic about this. People are freaking out, and maybe it's everybody that remembers when Iran used to do this back in the 80s. But the United States military is well equipped to handle this, and I think that this is going to be something they'll be able to manage going forward.
The other thing you have to consider is that governments, they often don't need proof of a threat. They only just need credible possibility that feels urgent enough for the public to support decisive action. I mean, just think about what happened with Iraq, right? We were told that they possessed weapons of mass destruction, and that could potentially threaten the U.S. and our allies. And ultimately, no stockpiles were found. So just, hey, say this is out there, and that's enough to take action. Donald Trump responded. He said that they were taking steps to stop any mines that were being deployed through the Strait of Hormuz. Another thing that Donald Trump announced is that the U.S. is opening the first oil refinery in 50 years. Comes along with a $300 billion investment. He said this is a historic $300 billion a year deal, the biggest in U.S. history. He called it a massive win for American workers, energy, and also the great people of Texas.
Yeah, and, Donald Trump ran on the famous line, drill, baby, drill. And, yeah, we should be producing as much oil here in this country and as much energy as we possibly can. But the part that is rarely ever talked about is processing that oil and refining that oil. Because if we just drill and we've got all this oil and we can't refine it and process it, well, then we're sending it overseas. So we've got to be able to do that here. This is a huge win for Donald Trump to be able to announce this. By the way, this plant is designed to handle American shale oil. So you hear about fracking, you hear about how there's so much benefit to that and how the United States has been able to extract way more oil than we ever thought was available within our borders. And that's exactly the type of oil that's really put the U.S. above everybody else and allowed us to become the world's #1 oil producer. It's that light shale oil that comes from fracking, and that's what this refinery is designed to process.
The one caveat being with this new oil refinery, first one in 50 years, this $300 billion investment, it comes from an Indian energy firm, Reliance, and it does make you question, don't we have any American investors that could have done this? And what are we going to be beholden to because that investment is coming from another country? The Treasury Secretary has said that we will have energy dominance and we will see recovery from all of this.
There is coverage when gas prices go up, right? We were north of $100 a barrel for a short period of time, and there's a lot of reporting on that. It just feels like there wasn't as much reporting when Donald Trump's energy dominance initiative brought prices down. But what the president has done is put us in a place where we are able to actually engage in this conflict. If you look at the power of Iran and the Strait of Hormuz and the leverage they have for a fifth of the oil that goes through there, to address that leverage, I think, is only appropriate. And so I think this is going to be short-lived for the president. And I think we're going to see a recovery in the energy markets.
That was actually the Transportation Secretary, not the Treasury Secretary. That was Sean Duffy who was talking about this. And you're seeing prices fluctuate every day depending on what the president says. Now, Chuck Schumer, he's been a little locked out. I feel like sometimes this guy has no idea what is going on because he is demanding that oil be released from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve.
Yep.
But he voted against the One Big Beautiful Bill that refilled the reserve after Biden drained it.
American families cannot afford to simply wait and hope for the price to come down. The solution is right here at home, Trump. Use the SPR, release it, prices will come down. Stop this blather that it'll go away soon. It won't. There's a war going on over there. Just last night, I saw a big oil refinery in Iran hit by missiles. That makes the price of oil go up even further. So at least use the SPR to get the price down.
He goes whichever way the wind blows, except for the SAVE Act.
Yeah, he's not interested in that. Look, the politicians never want to let the truth get in the way of a good story that they want to tell. I mean, he talked about how he hit that oil refinery yesterday, and that's going to make oil prices go up. Spoiler alert, oil prices are down from yesterday. And so you're seeing, I think there's a little bit of this disconnect. I think you're seeing a lot in the media of concern. And look, to a large degree, rightly so. This is something we want to keep our eye on. But you're talking about, shutting down the Strait of Hormuz, and we've got military conflict in Iran, and Iran is talking about laying mines throughout the Strait of Hormuz and all of the trade in oil that goes through that area. Oil is sitting at $84 a barrel this morning. Now, look, I'm not going to sit here and say that that's, a good thing. It's up about 20% at least from where it was a month ago. But keep in mind, it seems like there's a lot of media panic, but you're not seeing that really reflected in the last several days in the oil markets. I mean, we knew that on Monday morning overnight, oil spiked to about $120 a barrel. People were freaking out. And ever since then, it has just been on this nice, slow, and steady decline. And like I said, it's down from yesterday, and we're sitting at $84 a barrel right now.
So in the first 100 hours, Operation Epic Fury hit $3.7 billion. And you've got some people saying, nope, they're not gonna say yes to a supplemental package. You also have Joe Rogan saying that he feels betrayed. This is an insane war we're have going on with Iran. And we'll get to more of that coming up. You're listening to 93 WIBC.
If you owe back taxes, listen carefully to rule number 1. Never go up against the IRS alone. They're cracking down, freezing bank accounts, garnishing paychecks, canceling passports. Even your home or business could be at risk. But here's what they don't tell you. The IRS has powerful tax relief programs that could save you thousands if you qualify. That's why smart people call Optima Tax Relief, America's #1 tax resolution firm. Nobody knows these programs like the experts at Optima. Their team of tax attorneys and licensed professionals have resolved over $2 billion in tax debt for people just like you. The IRS is not stopping, so don't wait, and don't take them on alone. For tax help you need, for tax help you can trust, call Optima today for a free consultation.
Call 800-598-4799. 800-598-4799. 800-598-4799.
Optima Tax Relief. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit Optima Tax. 93 WIBC Mobile News. On the level, on the go.
More strikes on Iran. I'm Jarrett Lewis. Here's what's trending now at 9:30. The U.S. is ramping up attacks on Iranian ships as oil prices continue to rise.
Central Command sent this out, saying, quote, U.S. forces eliminated multiple Iranian naval vessels March 10th, including 16 mine layers near the Strait of Hormuz. President Trump added that the U.S. had no reports of the Iranians laying mines, but, quote, if for any reason mines were placed and they are not removed forthwith, the military consequences to Iran will be at a level never seen before. The president added that the U.S. is using the same technology and missile capabilities deployed against drug traffickers.
Fox's Rich Edson reporting the White House trying to calm fears about higher gas prices after President Trump said the war with Iran could end very soon. The Strait of Hormuz has been a frequent target since Operation Epic Fury began, with U.S. forces eliminating multiple Iranian naval vessels, including 16 mine layers near the strait. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum tells Fox and Friends that now is the perfect time to think about releasing some reserved oil.
These are the kinds of moments that these reserves are used for, because what we have here is not a shortage of energy in the world. We've got a transit problem, which is temporary.
Burgum also says a new oil refinery in Texas, as well as Venezuelan oil, will help bring down gas prices nationwide. And more on the severe weather hitting Indiana since last night. A tornado watch remains in effect for much of the eastern part of the state, from Indianapolis up to Marion and all the way down to Evansville. That will be till noon. The severe thunderstorm warning is covering the eastern part of the state, with central Hancock, Shelby, Rush, Decatur, southeastern Johnson, northern Bartholomew, and southern Henry counties. There's also a tornado warning in southern Jay County. At least 2 people were killed from the severe storms in the town of Lake Village in Newton County last night. Now your opening bell report on 93 WIBC, which is brought to you by Absolute Wealth Management. The Dow slides as oil prices move higher. The Dow's down 90 points, 47,706. The S&P 500 down just 3 points, 6,781. And the NASDAQ is up 19 points, 24,956. I'm Jarrett Lewis, on the level, on the go, and on WIBC.com.
The Tire Discounters. Oh, hiya, Phantom.
Mike, you may be in big trouble with Chip Wood.
Our owner?
Free oil changes along with alignment?
On any 4-tire purchase.
And Goodyear's up to $160 off?
Yeah.
Sorry, Mike, but I'm telling.
But the Wood family is behind all this.
Oh, those rascals.
But don't tell the accountants.
Of course not. And what do they do again?
Buy any set of 4 tires at Tire Discounters and get a free alignment and oil change. Make them Goodyear's and save up to $160 more. See store for details.
Honey, that flu keeping you up? Did you take NyQuil Intense Flu?
Nah, I got this. Okay, I don't got this.
Yeah, you need NyQuil Intense Flu.
Undo your flu with NyQuil Intense Flu. NyQuil Intense Flu provides powerful relief of your flu symptoms so you can sleep.
You do got this.
NyQuil Intense Flu. The nighttime sniffling, aching fever. Best sleep with the flu medicine. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Hey, John. Why so glum?
I just got let go. The company's downsizing. This is the 3rd time in the last 2 years. I'm done with this.
Have you thought about My Computer Career? I've heard they can train you for a career in IT in just a few months, including cybersecurity and the basics of AI. And you don't need prior training or experience. Now that's a recession-resistant career.
Wow, thanks. I'll check them out.
Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation. Mycomputercareer.edu, an Elite CompTIA certification partner.
Financial aid is available to those who qualify, including VA benefit.
Texting enrolls you in a recurring automated marketing text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
The team's looking good this season.
I think so. Man, I miss playing football. Ever since I turned 40, I just can't find that fire I used to have.
Think it could be lower testosterone?
What do you mean?
I was feeling the same way. After 40, the body has less testosterone, and men lose their edge. That's why I take Nugenix Total T2.
That's the testosterone booster, right?
Yes, but Total T2 is their brand new formula that skyrockets nitric oxide levels in as little as 3 hours. Since I started taking it, I've been lifting like when we played for Coach Carter. My energy is way up, and it even spiced up things between me and the missus.
Are they still giving out complimentary bottles?
Yep, just send a text.
Text RULE to 215215 for your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T2, the next generation testosterone booster. Text now and we'll include a bottle of Nugenix Thermo X, our newest, most powerful fat burner ever, absolutely free. Text RULE to 215215. That's RULE to 215215.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Hey, what's going on? It's Hammer from the Hammer and Nigel show. And I'm not going to lie to you. I needed help. I got a bald spot in the back of my head, and it's embarrassing. I see it when I'm on television. I see it when I'm on the YouTube channel. So I decided to reach out for help. And my friends at We Grow Hair Indie decided to help me out here. These guys are the absolute best. I was a little leery about it. I could not have a procedure that, 1, hurt, or 2, left me looking like I'd been scalped. But after I talked with Darren and the entire team at We Grow Hair Indie, they told me their state-of-the-art technology, the progress made in hair growth, it's going to be okay. If I can do this, you guys can do this. Contact the team at We Grow Hair Indie, 317-522-2995. That's 522-2995. Get that free evaluation. It's free. You can also go online to WeGrowHairIndie.com. Contact them today and do this with me. WeGrowHairIndie.com.
Swankco Crawl Space and Basement Repair. Indy's most trusted crawl space and basement contractor. 317-407-1868. SwankcoLLC.com.
Keeping an eye on the severe weather we're experiencing this morning in central Indiana. It looks like Knightstown, Louisville, Rushville, Orange, Columbia, Connorsville, Milton, Cambridge City, all getting hit right now. Connorsville, Brownsville, Centerville, and Richmond, you're on deck. It is headed your way. I feel very sorry for the people that are on 70 right now near Richmond, the state line, because not only are they going through some torrential storms right now, but you know that there's that 13-mile stretch that is under construction, and there's nothing scarier than when you're in a construction zone and the rain is just pouring down on you as well. So just slow it down. Just slow down. It's better to get there safely than to get there quickly. And we've got WIBC's Jarrett Lewis, who will be joining us momentarily to give us an update from the Chapman Heating and Air Conditioning Storm Desk. Back to what Joe Rogan recently said on his podcast. He said that Trump supporters feel betrayed because Trump campaigned on avoiding new wars. He described the conflict as insane and questioned why the U.S. got involved. I think the interesting part about this is with Rogan criticizing Trump, it's the anti-intervention wing of the right that is getting louder again. A lot of voters supported Trump specifically to avoid another long-term style war. And you've got one of the biggest voices in the movement saying, why are we doing this? That is just a sign that the messaging around all of this hasn't quite landed with everybody.
I think that's where Trump has struggled a lot with the conflict in Iran, is having a coherent message that he can sell to, especially his base. And how weird is it? 5 years ago, I told you, hey, we're having a military conflict with Iran, and everybody wants to know what Joe Rogan's take on it is. Obviously, the media landscape has changed, and I think it's interesting that we saw these big groups of podcasters that were so involved in the 2024 election, whether it's Joe Rogan, Theo Von, Andrew Schultz, that weren't known for that type of political content, that all of a sudden, and I get it, we were all, riveted around the 2024 election, and they were no exception to that, but it seems like they were not as politically astute as many of a lot of other people were, or certainly your typical political analyst. And I think they're finally, coming to the realization of what those of us that have been knee-deep involved in politics for a long time have always known is politicians are always going to disappoint you. We're always going to get disappointed by our politicians.
They're worse than you think they are. When you think that they're bad, just know they're even worse.
Yeah, and even if I was trying to be nice to the politicians and give them, a pass on this, they've got different constituent groups that are on opposite sides. So, like you said, there's the conservatives are kind of split right now. There's the isolationists like Joe Rogan who don't want to be involved in any military conflicts, and there are plenty of other conservatives that are like, hey, I see what Trump's trying to do here in Iran. So you're never going to be able to keep everyone happy as a politician, but it's interesting to see Joe Rogan split on this because it's not much of a surprise. And by the way, not the first time. Again, this is part of the same wing of the conservative movement that have really been mad at Donald Trump as it relates to releasing the Epstein files and not having a clear release on all of those, at least to satisfy what we think is enough information. It just feels like there's still information in the Epstein files that hasn't been released, and we know that's a fact because Pam Bondi has said that. But as it relates to this, I think this is a problem for Trump. That was a hardcore part of his base, and now in a very short period of time, just 3 or 4 months, he's really kind of let them down on both this issue of the Epstein file and the thing that he ran on during his campaign, no more foreign wars.
So he was also arguing that the administration had not clearly explained the purpose or even the end goal of the war. He was raising concerns that the conflict could escalate or drag the U.S. deeper into the Middle East. And of course, when there's talk about mining the Strait of Hormuz, is that just messaging that says, yeah, we could be there even a lot longer because that strait has to remain open for the global economy? And could the threat of the mining just be deterrence? Is this just so that the insurance companies will back off of covering any of these shipments that are going in and out of the Strait of Hormuz? Now, Rogan, he was very critical, and that kind of does reflect this growing split among some of not only media figures, but also voters that, voted for Trump because we were told we weren't doing this anymore. And now here we are.
And that shows, like you started this off with, it shows that Donald Trump has not been able to sell this to that wing of the conservative movement. And I've seen a lot of Democrats that are kind of poking fun at this reaction that Joe Rogan has had and like, what are we doing listening to Joe Rogan? This is, dumb and stupid, and he's not the type of person we should be getting feedback on this information from. Wait a minute.
Oh, I agree with him now.
18 months ago, we were just told that it was the right-wing podcast that put Donald Trump in office. All these Democrats blamed Theo Von and Joe Rogan and Andrew Schultz for putting Donald Trump in office, and now here we are 18 months later, and you're like, no, they don't matter. Okay, they may not matter as it relates to shaping American foreign policy, but they matter as it relates to them voicing their opinions to their massive audiences. I mean, that's really where Joe Rogan has this power, is he has massive audiences that listen to him, that tune into him on a regular basis and want to know what he thinks. And just like he was able to take that audience and push them toward Trump in 2024 by endorsing them, he can also create a rift in that section of the conservative movement by pushing them away from Donald Trump and saying things like, this is not what we voted for. You were supposed to run on no new foreign wars, and now we're in a big one in Iran.
Well, and one of the things that you really have to consider with the talk of the mining of the Strait of Hormuz is that could gradually slide us into something much broader in the Middle East, and that without a clearly defined end state. Right? You've got the public narrative. It quickly moves from possible mines to preemptive strikes. And it's reasonable to ask whether this is being framed to justify a broader military campaign under the banner of protecting global shipping. How much does it cost? Oh boy, there's a huge price tag for this. Operation Epic Fury hitting $3.7 billion in just the first 100 hours. Rand Paul says that he won't vote for a supplemental package for DOD. He said America spends more on its military than any other country, 4 times more than China. Our defense budget isn't inadequate, he said. It's massive. And he does not like the idea of proposing a 50% increase, another $50 billion. He said that just completely ignores reality. War isn't free in lives or in dollars.
I think that's devastating to our country. We can't withstand it. Our interest payment is larger than our military budget now. And so I don't want to weaken our country further. I think we've gotten overextended. This is our second war in a month. And these wars are very, very expensive, not only in the lives that are lost, but also in treasure. And so, no, I'm very, very concerned about the debt. It's been my number one focus for some time now.
I know it has.
And $500 billion to the military budget is fiscally irresponsible.
So you've got F-35s that cost like $36,000 every hour that they fly. We're already drowning in this debt. And so you've got to really question this debt. It just keeps getting piled up by the military industrial complex and the big spenders in Washington. And you know that Lindsey Graham is out there with his pom-poms just cheerleading it all the way.
Yeah, and one thing, I like Rand Paul a lot. I believe in a lot of his core values I share, although I do want to challenge him on one thing. He said this is our second war in a couple of months.
He's talking about Venezuela.
He's talking about Venezuela. You do yourself a disservice there, Rand Paul, and I get the point that you're trying to make, but let's not call what happened in Venezuela anywhere near a war or use it to say, hey, we spent all of this money investigating invading Venezuela. I'm not going to say it was free, but in comparison to this military action in Iran, it was pretty much a drop in the bucket. So Rand Paul does himself a disservice there, trying to call what we did in Venezuela a war. But this is where Congress has the real power. We talked about this back before the election when the Democrats were still in power and there was a government shutdown. And we said, hey, Republicans, if you want to control spending, shut the government down until things get in line. This is where Congress does have the most power as it relates to military actions that the president initiates. It is the power of the purse. And that may be the thing that ends up stopping Donald Trump from going forward more than anything, is if Congress decides, you know what, we're going to cut off funding for this.
All right, we're going to check in with WIBC's Jarrett Lewis and get a weather update.
This is a severe weather alert from the Chapman Heating and Air Conditioning Storm Desk.
That tornado watch remains in effect for 18 counties. Let's go through those again. Bartholomew, Decatur, Hancock, Johnson, Madison, Marion, Rush, and Shelby. And East Central Indiana, Delaware, Henry, and Randolph counties. South Central Indiana, Brown, Jackson, Lawrence, and Monroe. And down in southern parts of the state, Jennings, Davies, and Martin counties. All of those counties, 18 in total, under a tornado watch until at least noon today. The severe weather has passed. Right now, severe thunderstorm warning in the eastern parts of the state. We are under that tornado watch for much of eastern and south central Indiana at the moment. Flood advisories in areas of Crawfordsville and Kokomo as well. But again, the severe stuff has since passed. That tornado watch remaining in effect until noon today. From the WIBC Storm Desk, I'm Jarrett Lewis.
Hammer and Nigel show back at it this afternoon. The biggest stories in Indy, the latest on the war in Iran, and We're going to have a few cheap laughs along the way. Please join us.
Xfinity Tech Support, Matthew speaking.
Hi, I live in a pretty remote place, like Jurassic Park remote. No!
Wow.
Will Xfinity Mobile work out here?
Yep, the combination of reliable Wi-Fi and 5G makes it so that you can stay connected in all kinds of places. Plus, you get access to ultra-fast speeds and coverage, whether you're poolside or out live streaming with a T-Rex.
Hold still, you're about to go viral.
Welcome to a new era of Wi-Fi boosted mobile. Cut your mobile bill in half with 2 lines of unlimited. Learn more at xfinitymobile.com. Xfinity, imagine that. Watch Jurassic Park with Xfinity. Restrictions apply. Xfinity Internet required. Savings comparison based on promotional rate for 2 lines of Xfinity Mobile Unlimited versus 2 lines of T-Mobile Experience More, Verizon Unlimited Plus, and AT&T Starter as of February 10th, 2026. Taxes, fees, extra.
As you know, I had my garage floor coated with Galaxy concrete coatings a while back, and like anyone, I did some homework before I said, let's do this. Here are some things that I found out. First, Galaxy concrete coatings is local and ready to give you and all of Indianapolis a transformation. Next, Galaxy concrete coatings is 4 times stronger than epoxy, and it's designed to not only work in your garage, but they can also use it on driveways, walkways, around your pool or patio. With it being UV resistant, it will not yellow. Oh, and it's ready to go in 24 hours, so you can drive, walk, run, dance, splash on it right away. Now for my fun part. I got you 15% off. Just tell them when you call 317-343-0879 you want the Casey deal. You got to tell them the Casey deal for 15% off. And check out their site at galaxyconcretecoatings.com. They are truly out of this world.
Look at you sitting there all stuck in traffic and paying more because of State Senator Greg Walker. That's because in the state Senate, Greg Walker voted to raise our gas tax. You believe that? And Greg Walker opposed President Trump's plan to remove liberal Democrats from Congress. That could mean more road funding for New York, not Indiana. So next time you're stuck in traffic, think about this. Greg Walker voted for higher gas taxes and opposed President Trump's policies. Are those the kind of conservative values we want in the state Senate? Yeah, I didn't think so. President Trump calls Greg Walker a rhino and a loser, and he's right. We don't have to be stuck with rhino Greg Walker. Call Greg Walker at 317-232-9400. Tell him to support lower gas taxes and President Trump's agenda. Paid for by Hoosier Leadership for America.
You've probably heard all those ads for life insurance. Just a few dollars a day, apply online in minutes, no medical exam. Simple, easy, and cheap, right? Now you're thinking, maybe I should get a quote. Well, smart thinking. Everyone should have life insurance. But here's what they don't tell you. Those few dollars a day rates, they're for young people in perfect health. That's why everyone calls Big Lou the 50 to 60-year-old not-so-perfect candidate. Like you. You take prescription meds, and you're overweight. Winner, winner, fried chicken dinner. Well, Big Lou works with life insurance companies that want people like you, with no surprises after you apply. In fact, if you're a 50-year-old guy with a few health glitches, Lou could probably find you $1 million of term life coverage for about $200 a month. So yeah, you need life insurance. But unless you're young and healthy, you gotta call Big Lou, because he's like you, older, heavier, and on meds too. Get a quote right now at 800-529-2856. 800-529-2856 or biglou.com.
You listen to WIBC. Now come work with us. We're looking for our next great sales assistant. If you're highly organized and ready to handle a fast-paced media environment, apply now at radio1.com/careers. Bilingual speakers preferred. Radio 1 is an equal opportunity employer.
Riders on the storm.
Every shutdown story eventually becomes the same headline. Airports in chaos. But it does show you that there's a pattern, right? Transportation pain points, always the first thing that the public feels. When Congress can't get it together, we're the ones left waiting in line. You've got airport security grinding to a halt. Congress can't fund DHS. It just shows that Washington has this habit of using national security and you as political leverage. It comes down to real world situations every single time. Now, the latest report is that you have about 300 TSA officers who quit, and a lot called in sick. The sick call-ins, call-outs, more than doubled. And it's hard to blame these people because if you're not getting paid, are you really going to be motivated to be doing a good job? Probably not. You probably say, I'm not going in there. You're not even paying me.
Yeah, WIBC Newsroom, there's actually a really good story about this right now at WIBC.com talking about how some Indianapolis TSA agents have recently quit because of the partial government shutdown. And yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I don't care why I'm not getting paid. I don't care if it's a government shutdown. I don't care if it's some glitch in the system. At the end of the day, I'm not getting paid.
I'm not working for free.
I'm not going to show up to work. And by the way, just because you promised me, oh, no, we'll take care and we'll give you back pay later.
It doesn't help me today.
It doesn't help me today. And also, I can't spend promises. You may promise that to me today, and then, oh, shocker, the government and some politicians lied to me, and I'm not getting back pay in the future. That's also a possibility. But we're seeing some of the awful TSA lines that we saw over the weekend, at the end of last week and early this week, have settled down a little bit, but there are still several airports that are reporting just awful TSA lines right now, the worst being Houston Hobby Airport and Atlanta Hartsfield Airport. So if you've got plans to travel through either to or through any of those locations with connecting flights, you better be prepared for a lot of people, and it really is kind of bad timing here because we're just getting started on the spring break rush that's going to last for the next month. So you're seeing not only a reduction in the amount of people that TSA can clear in a certain amount of time, but we're also seeing this massive influx of people traveling, and so we're getting hit from both ends, and that's why we're seeing, Houston Hobby Airport is still asking travelers to show up 3 to 4 hours before their scheduled departure. That's not for international flights. International flights, that's usually, you're supposed to show up, 2 hours, 3 hours early so they can make sure your passport and your paperwork are in order. No. These are domestic flights flying out of Houston 3 to 4 hours in advance.
You've also got the airport in New Orleans having long lines, and Charlotte as well. And Charlotte is a big connecting airport, especially for people who are flying from Indianapolis to maybe Florida to go on spring break. There's a lot of switching in Charlotte. And
it's a major hub. Charlotte is a major hub for American Airlines. So if you're flying American Airlines to the East Coast, a lot of times you're going to have a connecting flight through Charlotte, and that's one of the worst airports right now, too.
So you've got TSA shortages producing these 3 to 4 hour security lines. It's just a reminder that a lot of these government systems, they function less, and they're not really resilient when the funding isn't there. But John Thune, he said, he tried to talk to those Democrats, and he put in an offer to reopen DHS 12 days ago, and the Democrats never responded.
You're starting to see the lines at the airports because TSA employees aren't getting paid. Obviously, cybersecurity falls under the jurisdiction of the Department of Homeland Security, border security. You can go right down the list. FEMA, these are agencies that have a profound impact on the safety and security of the American people. And the Democrats have opted to, in the most cynical way, play politics. I mean, how much more cynical can you get than to play politics with issues that affect Homeland Security? But that seems to be where they are. Obviously, we're going to do everything we can to continue to make the case that we need to get DHS opened up. In fact, Senator Britt last week offered a couple different times unanimous consent requests to fund that department and those agencies, and to allow additional time for discussion with the Democrats so we could at least get into the negotiation, and they resisted that as well.
So we were talking about the inconvenience of waiting around in the TSA lines in the airport, but John Thune did mention something there. You're talking national security while we're in the middle of Operation Epic Fury with Iran. It's not good. But John Thune, he's saying that he doesn't have the votes to remove the filibuster. Nancy Pelosi was able to get the votes. Take these people off their committees. Don't give him any money for re-election. John Thune could get it done if he really wanted to.
It's clear John Thune does not want to. He has options, and he's not using them.
You're listening to 93 WIBC.
Time now for the Retirement Report with Casey Weed. Megan Mozak here with financial advisor Casey Weed, founder and CEO of Howard Bailey Financial. Now, many people assume their taxes will automatically go down once they retire and stop collecting paychecks. Casey, is this a dangerous assumption?
Well, Megan, lower taxes in retirement can be an absolute myth. Remember, up to 85% of your Social Security income could be taxed. Your traditional IRA and 401k income is 100% taxable. That's why it's important to find ways to reduce or eliminate your taxes where possible. Well, now is the time to start looking ahead and identifying your tax liabilities in retirement. We have a great resource to help our listeners today. We call it the Retire with Purpose Toolkit. You can get it today by calling or texting KIT to 888-494-5004. My team helped me put it together just for you, and it's complimentary. The center of it is a copy of my latest book, Job Optional. It has chapters on everything from taxes to Social Security to investments. We also include guides on other topics like long-term care and strategies for helping deal with a recession in retirement, among many others. So if you want to get this information in your hands today, just call or text KIT, K-I-T, to 888-494-5004. That's 888-494-5004.
Take advantage of this offer and get your Retire with Purpose Toolkit today. Just text KIT to 888-494-5004. The team at Howard Bailey Financial will get your Retire with Purpose Toolkit to you right away. So just call or text KIT to 888-494-5004.
Howard Bailey Securities LLC is an independent financial services firm and uses a variety of different investment strategies. This is prepared for informational purposes only. It does not address specific investment objectives or the financial situation. Firm does not provide tax services.
Spring is fast approaching and a great time for a new Lincoln at Tom Roush Lincoln in Fishers. 0% financing is back. That's right, 0% for 48 months on new Corsair, Nautilus, and Aviator. Plus 0% for 36 months on new Navigator. With these rates, it's absolutely the best time to buy. Be sure to check them all out at Tom Roush Lincoln in Fishers. Our family serving yours since 1972.
0% APR for 48 months on 2026 Lincoln Corsair, Nautilus, and Aviator. 0% APR for 36 months on 2025 Lincoln Navigator. Subject to credit approval. Offers end 3/31/26. See dealer for complete offer details.
You ever wonder why Verizon charges twice as much as Pure Talk for the same basic service? Think it might have something to do with the fact that Verizon spends $12 billion a year on advertising and promotion. That's billion with a B. Yeah. Pure Talk doesn't spend that kind of money on commercials. That's why they can offer unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data on a blazing fast 5G network for just $25 a month. Save an additional 50% off your first month when you dial pound 250 and say the words micro. That's pound 250, micro.
Coming up in 2 minutes from the Dugan Air Heating and Cooling Mitsubishi Electric Studios, updates from the National Weather Service as severe weather is here and mostly gone from the state this morning. Also, the impacts tornadoes had on northwest Indiana Tuesday night, where Indy police found a woman dead and what brought officers and FBI agents to the airport on Tuesday. You're listening to 93 WIBC, WIBC HD1 Indianapolis. It's 10 o'clock.
Iran keeps trying to disrupt the global fuel supply. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. 3 commercial ships have been hit in the Strait of Hormuz. 1 caught fire. Iran's also sent drones into Gulf countries, some targeting oil facilities there, but were shot down. And as Iranian boats put mines in that key oil shipping lane, the U.S. is targeting them and Iran's Navy.
President Trump issuing a stark warning to Iran, posting the following. If for any reason mines were placed and they are not removed forthwith, the military consequences to Iran will be at a level never seen before. Central Command also releasing numbers now, the fresh numbers, 60 Iranian ships destroyed by U.S. and Israeli forces.
Fox's Steve Harrigan near the Iran border in Armenia. And as Iran also launches missiles into Israel that have been shot down, American and Israeli strikes continue across Iran, which has a new leader who's kept a low profile.
Israeli and Iranian officials have told several media outlets that Iran's new supreme leader was lightly wounded in the legs on day 1 of the war. One Israeli official saying that could explain why Mojtaba Khamenei hasn't been seen in public. He was chosen to replace his father, who died in an Israeli airstrike in the opening hours of the conflict. Mojtaba's appointment reportedly pushed through by the Revolutionary Guard because he'd follow their hardline agenda.
Fox's Jonathan Savage. Oil prices are rising again today, and so is gasoline. An inflation report this morning shows only a modest increase in consumer prices last month, but that was pre-war inflation. 2 people are dead in Lake Village, Indiana, after a tornado ripped through. The same twister may also be the one that tore up parts of Kankakee, Illinois, where Mina Patel's business is among the many homes and buildings damaged.
I didn't know I was going to survive. I was in the bathroom, locked up. Everything was blowing out. I can see it. I couldn't open my door because the pressure, when the window broke, all the pressure, I couldn't open my door. My mother-in-law was sitting outside. I couldn't even help her. I'm glad she's safe.
But 7 others in Kankakee were injured. America's listening to Fox News.
93 WIBC Mobile News. On the level, on the go.
The more serious stuff passing through. Skies are cloudy at 60 with lighter rain falling in and around downtown Indianapolis after that wave of thunderstorms passed by. A high today close to 71. I'm Jarrett Lewis. Here's what's trending at 10:02. A severe thunderstorm warning mainly covers just 3 counties in eastern Indiana now, while a tornado watch remains in effect. That will last for a few more hours, with 18 counties listed, mainly in central, eastern, and southern parts of the state.
There's enough shear turning in the atmosphere that the potential for some isolated tornadoes is there, and that's the reason the tornado watch was issued. And again, it covers really the southern 2/3 of the state through noon.
Mike Ryan from the National Weather Service in Indianapolis. There's a wind advisory going on for longer, as some gusts got as strong as 60 miles per hour earlier this morning. At least 2 people died when severe weather hit northwest Indiana Tuesday night. A strong storm struck the town of Lake Village in Newton County, damaging or destroying several homes.
And the stories they're getting from people who survived this are harrowing. As far as the number of people who may be injured or potentially dead, they're not talking about that at this point. It is still far too soon to know exactly what happened, especially because it is too difficult to get around the county.
Names have not yet been released as authorities confirm more details. NWS will confirm the exact number of tornadoes in Illinois and Indiana soon. Early reports indicate at least 4. A woman is found dead in the backyard of a home on the west side of Indianapolis late last night. The woman has been identified by the Marion County Coroner's Office as 51-year-old Kimberly Stewart. IMPD says they're investigating her death as a homicide. FBI agents say they arrested a man at the airport on Tuesday tied to a shooting from earlier this month in Indy. The FBI worked with IMPD to capture 37-year-old Keith White. He was in El Paso, then flew to Denver before landing in Indianapolis and being taken into custody. The shooting is from Friday on the city's north side. Some Indianapolis TSA agents have recently quit as the partial government shutdown continues, and they won't be getting paid soon.
The 14th will be the day that it'll start hitting. There's no paycheck. There's no gas money. So how do you get to work? And we're expected to be here whether we're getting paid or not.
President of American Federation of Government Employees Local 618, Kevin Smith, told Wish TV that since the middle of February, about half a dozen agents have left. A busy time at the airport is coming too, with heavy spring break travel approaching. TSA dealt with a government shutdown that lasted for 43 days last fall. IU is in Chicago to begin a possible run in the Big Ten tournament. Tonight they take on Northwestern. And the Indiana Pacers are officially the first NBA team eliminated from playoff contention after they lost to Sacramento last night, 114-109.
And their bench just played an unbelievable last 15 minutes of the game.
Head coach Rick Carlisle, they return home. The Pacers due to face Phoenix tomorrow. I'm Jarrett Lewis on the level, on the go, and on WIBC.com.
It's time. You've been putting off that kitchen or bath remodel long enough. What are you waiting for? Get started today with Boer Remodeling. Boer Remodeling customer Kathy had a bath remodel with Boer. Kathy, talk a little bit about your experience.
Our experience with Boer has been terrific. The process was so easy and seamless. When we decided to do a larger remodel of our first floor, Boer was the first company we thought of hiring.
And were you happy with the results?
The results are amazing, and we are so happy with our home and the work that Boer did.
Peter is another recent Boer Remodeling customer with a new kitchen. Peter, what was the best part about working with Boer?
We especially liked the active participation that we were able to have in selection of stone for the countertops. Really came out beautiful. The cabinets also came out very, very well.
The best materials, the most skilled craftsmen in Central Indiana. They'll guide you through the entire process. Start with a free consultation. Talk to Boer Remodeling today. That's BOOHER, BoerRemodeling.com.
If a state office is partnering with a political activist group to register students to vote, does that blur the line between government outreach and political organizing? So you've got some top Republican officials in Indy. They're deepening their ties with the conservative activist group Turning Point USA. Secretary of State Diego Morales, he announced a voter registration partnership with Turning Point's youth arm, Club America. He could not race to the podium fast enough. Governor Mike Braun was going to make an announcement, and he was beat by his own Secretary of State with that announcement. This partnership is going to host voter registration drives on high school campuses and also promote the state's Hoosier Hall Pass program that lets eligible teens serve as poll workers. Now, supporters are going to say that this is encouraging young people to participate in elections.
Sure.
You got critics that are going to say it looks like the government picking sides in youth political ecosystem. But what I think this is doing is it's showing, for whatever reason, because they need the voters, they want to get people encouraged because their polling numbers are not so hot. The Republicans, they're making an effort to at least meet these younger voters where they actually are and put boots on the ground for their cause.
What I love about this is the liberals and the Democrats are losing their mind for a lot of the reasons that you just mentioned, taking a clearly politically affiliated group like TPUSA and bringing them into the school systems. But all this is the Republicans taking a page out of the Democrat playbook. Talk to any person who can be intellectually honest with themselves, and I think we can all agree that our entire education system has been infected by liberals and their ideology, or as Elon Musk likes to call it, the woke mind virus, all the way from elementary to high school to our universities. And that's what the Democrats have spent the last 20 or 30 years doing. We're going to turn our education system into this woke liberal incubator and then send all of those children out into the real world. And then all of a sudden the Republicans say, hey, we can play that game too, guys.
Right, and they lose their minds.
We can play that game too. And the Democrats are like, what are you doing? You're not allowed to do that. You're not supposed to do that. And I think what Braun and the Republicans are doing that is so smart here, and again, this is just from a political analysis standpoint, they're using this under the guise of voter registration. Who can possibly be against spending money that gets more people registered to vote? That's if you lay that out, pretty much all Americans are like, yes, it's a good thing that people get registered and they go and vote. But think about it. If I'm setting up structure and organization to get people to register to vote, and I do it under the TPUSA banner, what type of kid do you think is going to approach that tent or that booth and get themselves registered to vote? Do you think there's going to be a lot of liberals that are like, you know what, I wasn't registered to vote, but I'm going to go to that TPUSA tent, and that's where I'm going to... No, of course, it's probably going to be kids that are predominantly have some conservative views, or at the very least have a positive image of Turning Point USA, and those are the type of people that are going to end up registering to vote throughout this whole process.
You're right. Turning Point USA and also Club America, they do promote conservative values, although their websites don't explicitly say that they're connected to the Republican Party. So what you've got here, you're getting some young people registered, you're getting them involved in elections. That's a good thing. And conservatives have every right to bring their ideas to the mix as well. As you have mentioned, for years, Democrats have dominated in youth outreach. So now this is creating just a little bit of balance. It does make sense. And you're also strengthening the civic participation instead of just complaining about turnout, because that's what has happened for years is Republican, well, we just don't have the youth. We just don't have the kids. And now they're making an effort to do that here in Indiana. Either way, though, it does also highlight something bigger. And that's that a lot of modern politics, it's not about just passing the laws anymore. It's about who shapes the next generation of voters first. And Republicans here in Indiana are reaching out to this group to try and get those voters first.
And, you know, it's so amazing what Charlie Kirk did and TPUSA did, because you just talked about it. You talked about how conservatives and Republicans have struggled for decades to get that youth vote. And that was really kind of the first time we saw any conservative affiliated group really move the needle with youth
At
voting.
all.
It was really TPUSA in the 2024 election that was a massive driver of that. And to be honest, it was the decades worth of work that Charlie Kirk did in advance of the 2024 election, building this entire network, all the visits to the college campuses he did, and building this organization out. And again, I go back to the Democrats on this. It is so funny because they hate politics in schools, but only when it's not their politics.
Right.
That's the only time they hate politics in schools. I remember during the General Assembly last year, there was that vote that was passed that was going to make school board elections partisan. Before then, you didn't have to declare Republican, Democrat, or Independent if you were running for school board. Well, they passed it last year, and now you do. And Democrats lost their minds. We shouldn't be bringing politics into schools. Oh, really? You've brought your politics into our entire education system for the last 30 or 40 years. But now that this is happening with TPUSA, again, you don't like it because it's not your politics.
Another thing that is happening with Turning Point USA is that Donald Trump has appointed Erica Kirk to the U.S. Air Force Academy Board of Visitors. This is an advisory panel, and it oversees the Academy's morale, discipline, academics, finances, and some other issues. And supporters are going to say that this is about honoring Charlie Kirk's legacy, continuing his work. You've got critics who are going to say this looks a lot like political loyalty translating into a government appointee position. The issue that I have with this is that part of this board that oversees the finances, they send reports directly to the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. So it's a very powerful oversight role, and it is tied to one of the most important military institutions in the United States. And while honoring Charlie Kirk is nice, it does bring up some questions about her resume to fill this position.
Look, I'm not going to defend Trump on this appointment. I can't imagine any logical argument that could say Erica Kirk deserves to be on this Air Force board. Trump caught a lot of flack from Democrats as it related to the Kennedy Center board. He put some people on there that looked like they weren't qualified on paper, but Trump knew that they would just vote the way he wants them to do and do the things he wants them to do. And I'm sure he feels the same way with Erica Kirk. And again, so hypocritical. We just talked about with education. So hypocritical for Democrats to come out here and say, no, you can't do that. That person's unqualified. These boards have always been nothing but political appointees. You put people on these boards that are going to do what the president wants to do, regardless of their qualifications. So I'm not going to defend Trump for these appointments, but I'm also not going to let the Democrats get away with trying to attack Trump on this, because this is just the way Washington politics have been played for a long, long time.
Well, it does show you that whichever political coalition happens to be in power at the moment, they're going to have the oversight and the power and these big high profile positions. And that's a lot of power. And it just shows you that more and more parts of American institutions like universities and agencies and now military academies, they're becoming extensions of the country's political culture wars. This is just another area that is being tapped into the culture war. Our military, the academy. Let's talk about what's going on in Indianapolis, and that is with the curfews. So Indianapolis police, they have detailed youth curfew plans this ahead of spring break. Okay, so they've got this new youth safety and curfew enforcement plan, and the focus is on juvenile curfew. It limits when minors can be unsupervised in public, especially late at night. So outreach is fine. Enforcement is more important. You should have both of them, right? You need to give these young people the resources, but at the end of the day, you got to still hold them accountable. That's smarter than just letting chaos set in.
Yeah, and I think
during spring break.
Something that's important here, these aren't new curfew regulations. This is just the IMPD announcing that they're going to be enforcing existing curfew laws. And to get specific, they state that kids ages 15 to 17 have to be home by 11 p.m. on school nights, 1 a.m. on weekends. Seems to be pretty lenient. 1 a.m. on a weekend night for a 15-year-old shouldn't be too hard to achieve. And I think as conservatives, we always go back to, well, this is the parents' responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Parents should know this. Parents should control their children. They should be the ones that aren't allowing them out there. And I agree with that, and that's a message that we need to keep hammering on. But when you've got crappy parents that don't know where their kids are or letting them run around and cause chaos and cause violence, that's when the police have to step in. And I think it's really smart. I think what we don't want to see here so far this year, murders and violent crime in Indianapolis have been trending in the right direction, and that's down. And I think as we start to get into spring break and especially the summer months, because that's usually when we see the uptick in violence, the more that we can start enforcing curfew laws, the more that we can have a continued police presence, especially downtown. It's really tough to argue against that.
So you've got police that are going to be using their patrol car announcements 30 and 15 minutes before curfew begins, and just reminding families of the rules. Go home. Curfew starts. Time to go home. It's like those old commercials. Do you know where your children are?
Look, yeah, let's think back here. I'm not going to say that our parents were, had their eye on the ball the whole time. They had to run an entire national television campaign that was said, it's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your kids are? And maybe we do need to go back to something like that. This has always been a problem for generations where kids want their freedom and they want to go out, and sometimes they cause some violence and chaos associated with that. This is just a common sense approach that helps our police officers do a better job of controlling the violence on our streets, because that's the way I look at it. I look at this as, okay, we're giving our police officers a tool to help control the violence on our streets.
You've got a blue state exodus. 3 big companies announcing that they're leaving blue states. And the latest is the Yamaha Motor Corporation USA, moving their headquarters from California to Georgia. They've been in California for nearly 50 years, and this relocation is going to begin at the end of this year, continue through 2028. Yamaha consolidating their operations. Yeah, no kidding. It's impossible to do business in California at this point.
Yeah, and something interesting that also came out, this just happened late last night. The state of Washington, who is one of the few states in the country that does not have an income tax, similar to Florida and Texas, they don't have income taxes. Washington has never had an income tax. But for the first time ever, their legislature put forward a bill and pushed it through where they're going to institute the first ever state income tax in the state of Washington. Now, it's only going to be levied on people that make over $1 million a year, but it's a 10% tax on everybody that makes over $1 million a year. And immediately, as soon as that was done, Howard Schultz, who's the CEO of Starbucks, announced that not only is Starbucks moving its headquarters out of Seattle and to Nashville because of this, but he and his family are also moving to Florida. So that's how fast it happened, state of Washington and Democrats.
Starbucks is leaving Washington.
Starbucks is leaving Seattle. Now, this is their corporate headquarters. Mm-hmm. And Howard Schultz, who's a billionaire, is packing his family up, and they're moving to Florida. This is what blue states are faced with. They're faced with the fact that they have to compete with red states. They have to compete for dollars. They have to compete with business. They have to compete for tax dollars. And when you're just going to throw a 10% income tax up on everybody that makes $1 million, all those people that make $1 million are going to start questioning, why am I living in Washington state? And maybe there's another state that might be better for me and my family. And I mean, within hours of that law passing, Howard Schultz made that announcement.
He said, I'm out of here. Well, it is a clear sign that you've got these high taxes and the regulations. They're chasing jobs and investments to more business-friendly states. We've got Johnette Cruz from the WIBC newsroom. She's going to join us next on 93 WIBC.
It's the last stop before the dance, and nothing's guaranteed.
We're going to continue to try to be as good as you can every night.
The tournament doesn't hand out invitations. It makes you earn them.
Picks it back up, drives in, throws it up, and got it.
When the Hoosiers land on Selection Sunday, is decided right here. IU meets Northwestern today. Pre-game at 5:30. The road to Indianapolis runs through 93 WIBC.
Hey, what's going on? It's Hammer from the Hammer and Nigel show. And I'm not going to lie to you. I needed help. I got a bald spot in the back of my head, and it's embarrassing. I see it when I'm on television. I see it when I'm on the YouTube channel. So I decided to reach out for help. And my friends at We Grow Hair Indie decided to help me out here. These guys are the absolute best. I was a little leery about it. I could not have a procedure that, one, hurt, or two, left me looking like I'd been scalped. But after I talked with Darren and the entire team at We Grow Hair Indie, they told me their state-of-the-art technology, the progress made in hair growth, it's going to be okay. If I can do this, you guys can do this. Contact the team at We Grow Hair Indy, 317-522-2995. That's 522-2995. Get that free evaluation. It's free. You can also go online to WeGrowHairIndy.com. Contact them today and do this with me. WeGrowHairIndy.com.
Oh, how's that flu, babe? Did you take DayQuil Intense Flu yet?
Nah, I got this. Ugh, okay, I don't got this.
You stay on the couch, and I'll grab the DayQuil.
Undo your flu symptoms with DayQuil Intense Flu. DayQuil Intense Flu provides powerful relief of your flu symptoms.
I'm ready for that to-do list.
Wow, you do got this.
DayQuil Intense Flu. The daytime coughing, aching, fever, under your flu, medicine. Use as directed, keep out of reach of children.
Hey, John, why so glum? I just got let go. The company's downsizing. This is the third time in the last 2 years. I'm done with this.
Have you thought about My Computer Career? I've heard they can train you for a career in IT in just a few months, including cybersecurity and the basics of AI. And you don't need prior training or experience. Now that's a recession-resistant career.
Wow, thanks. I'll check them out.
Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation. Mycomputercareer.edu, an Elite CompTIA certification partner. Financial aid is available to those who qualify, including VA benefit.
With 0% financing for up to 2 years, upgrading your home has never been easier. Go to bwindow.com. Trust your home to be.
Trust me. My grades were bad.
I appeared to be doing good at my school life, but if you would see me at home, it would have been a completely different story.
I mean, it was just rough focusing on school when your mother is somebody you have to take care of.
There are students who need somebody.
Communities in Schools is helping more than 1.3 million kids get whatever they need to succeed in school. You can help change the picture of education at communitiesinschools.org.
I hear people say we can't save every kid, but I think that we can.
This hour is powered by Swankco, Indy's most trusted crawl space and basement contractor.
From the WIBC newsroom, Johnette Cruz joining us. You want to continue that off-air conversation?
Yes, I would love to.
We were talking about the appointment of Erica Kirk to the military board, and I was surprised at your thoughts on that because working in a newsroom, you're supposed to be very neutral and just present the facts. But you had an opinion.
I did.
You certainly did.
Yeah.
We won't press you to share with us. Jim and I have already expressed ours, and I think the big concern is that where's the military experience or the resume to back that up?
Exactly.
Appointment. She's going to be in charge of a lot of appropriations.
I think it's a big deal, and I think you do need to have some sort of background and experience if you're going to be appointed to something like that, and I think that opens up a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm. I really question as well because you heard the reports that Charlie Kirk was wanting to audit Turning Point USA before he was murdered.
Yes.
And I don't know. It opens some
I completely
some
agree.
questions.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to ignore some of those things.
Yep. So let's move on to your latest article. The state of Indiana nearing completion of a massive $1.2 billion restructuring of the Westville Correctional Facility, and now you have an activist that has started a petition. Tell us about it.
Yes. So his name is King. He has basically spent the last 15 years in and out of federal and state prison, and so obviously has had a lot of experience in several different facilities. He has a brother currently at Westville right now, and so he obviously has the firsthand experience. His brother's experience at Westville, knows of the inhumane conditions over at that prison where, there's no heat, there's no water. I mean, they're basically living in like negative degree temperatures when it's in the winter. And so he decided, you know what, I am officially out and I'm getting back into society and I want to try to make a difference and I want to create this change.org to try and say, like, these people deserve, even though they are in there and they're serving time, they also deserve humane living when it comes to serving their prison time in all of these different facilities. And so that's what that's about.
Have you spoken to anybody in the Indiana Department of Correction about this for comment?
No, I have sent multiple. When I tell you multiple, I mean probably at least 8 to 10 emails. I also sent another email yesterday because I'm working on another story of a woman who has her husband incarcerated currently, and she hasn't been able to see him over in the last year because of some retaliation that she says she has gotten from the correctional officers at that facility. So I sent another email, and literally in the email I said, I have contacted you guys multiple times on different instances of about a various amount of topics when I'm getting all this information from people and stories. And I would like to have some sort of formal response from the IDOC so that I can put together a well-balanced report. And you guys are not doing that.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the gentleman that we talked about just a minute ago that is now out of prison and is creating this organization. What's he hoping to accomplish with that org? I mean, I know, actually, the question is, how is he hoping to accomplish it? Because it seems like he can raise awareness, but is there more that he can do beyond that?
Yeah, I think at this point, I think for him, it's more about gaining the awareness and that people are not very much in tune to what is happening within the facilities, not only in the state, but around the U.S., because he also spent time in Virginia and in Michigan before he came back to Indiana. So for him, I think it's just like letting people know, like, this is happening every single day. And there's also retaliation happening with all of these different prison systems and the correctional officers. And so we need to make sure that everybody knows what's going on.
So we haven't heard anything that any of these issues are temporary or construction based.
Yeah.
This is long term.
Yes.
This has been ongoing.
Yes, absolutely.
WIBC's Jonette Cruz is joining us. All right, let's give an update on Zandra's story from last week. This is the wife of the inmate who stabbed himself with the fork.
Yeah, so Zandra was the former correctional officer, and so she shared that story about the inmate at the time getting stabbing himself. And so out of that story, I have so many DMs right now that I'm still trying to sift through. But the one that obviously jumped eyes out for me was the fiance of the inmate messaged me on Facebook. And she actually used to work at the Miami Correctional Facility as a nurse. And she left in August of 2025. And she said, I am now his fiance. He is filing a lawsuit against the facility and against IDOC, and also 4 to 5 correctional officers have been fired because of that incident.
Wow.
What's the lawsuit that he's filing?
I just saw it. I didn't respond yet, but I'm going to message her because I'd love to hear more about the specific lawsuit and exactly what's surrounding that entire event.
All right. And you also have a story that you want to bring some attention to.
Yes.
This one is about a missing teen who has gone under the radar.
Yeah, her name is Carrington Bohannon. I actually just spoke with her mother this morning, and she has been missing since October 21st. She is categorized as a runaway. This is actually her third time that she's run away from home. It really did go under the radar. And, there was a post about it. It happened back in October. And then, then everything happened with Haley Busby. And I think that kind of took front and center. And so now they're trying to get the public to, know about this information again. I spoke with the mother this morning, and she truly feels as though there was an adult in the situation who has also influenced her daughter. This adult is around 31, 32 years old. She's given that contact information to IMPD. IMPD has been unable to locate this specific adult. So she feels like she was also influenced and possibly groomed during this time. Like she knows, my teen is not perfect. She's ran away multiple times. We've had issues before, but she just left a letter saying she was stressed out, that they weren't getting along. And so she just feels like an adult was in her ear. And so now she's been missing for 4 months.
Okay, so tell us about Carrington Bohannon. Where is this? Where are they from? What information do we have? What do we know?
Yeah, so she actually got a call from the school on the 21st of October. She went to Purdue Polytech, and they called the mother and said, hi, your daughter didn't show up to school today. And she's like, what?
Scary.
Her daughter was actually spending the night at her grandmother's house. She left in the middle of the night at her grandmother's house over on the city's west side of Indianapolis. The mother, they have a place on the east side. And so she said right then that morning, she called IMPD. She filled out a report. They categorized her as a runaway. And that is literally it. She didn't have a phone because at that point in time, she was in trouble. So they took away her phone. She didn't have any phone. She has deleted all of her social media, so you cannot find her anywhere. There is no digital footprint whatsoever. And the only possible connection she may have is this adult who was a former neighbor who knew this neighbor was feeding some things into her daughter.
Okay.
And that is all she has. And she's just like, I just need to get this information out. I want my daughter home.
Yeah. What are you working on now?
Oh gosh, I'm working on a couple of prison stories. Actually, just this morning released a story on a custody case happening out of Hancock County. A father who is really wanting 50-50 custody of the daughter, but feels as though there is some influence within the Hancock County prosecutor's office.
Okay.
So I actually just released that this morning. I'll be making a video about that this afternoon, but he feels like, there's something happening where the mother's family, one of the family members works in the prosecutor's office and feels that there's some pull there. And so he's just in this battle. And I've seen all the documents. I've seen everything that he's had to go throughout all of this. And he's just like, look, I love my daughter. I just want 50-50. That's it.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you bringing some attention to these stories and highlighting them. WIBC's John Cruz. Thank you.
93 WIBC Mobile News. On the level, on the go.
Illinois and Indiana hardest hit. I'm Jarrett Lewis. Here's what's trending at 10:31. Brought to you by Moss Home Improvements. Cleanup continues from violent storms that ripped across the Midwest Tuesday night. Here's Fox's Jeff Manasso.
In Lake Village, Indiana.
Multiple homes destroyed. Lake Village took a direct hit, so please stay away from the area.
Fire crews confirming the worst, 2 deaths in Lake Village as search and rescue operations continue from the same tornado that battered Kankakee, Illinois.
They hit this building behind us and some of the buildings a little bit farther north, but the buildings on the east side of the road have been damaged as well.
Assistant Fire Chief Dal Emerson, a grapefruit-sized hail also reported in Kankakee. Trees and power lines down, thousands without power.
Again, Fox's Jeff Manasso reporting. As the war in Iran continues, several cargo ships were reportedly struck by projectiles on Wednesday in the Strait of Hormuz, catching on fire after the U.S. targeted Iranian mine-laying vessels. The narrow mouth of the Persian Gulf sees about a fifth of all oil and natural gas shipments pass through, and the disruption has led to a sharp increase in gas prices in the U.S. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum has more with Fox and Friends.
President Trump has made it very clear the consequences if they try to do that. And there's a lot of options between ourselves and our allies in the region, including our Arab friends in the region, to make sure that those straits keep open and that energy keeps flowing.
And many companies have opted to suspend shipments through the strait because of the danger to crews and cargo. President Trump set to address concerns about affordability during his visits to Ohio and Kentucky this week. A new poll shows that 74% of registered voters are concerned about potential increases in oil and gas prices. And the Senate will most likely not be passing the SAVE Act. Senate Majority Leader John Thune says Republicans lack the will to get it done. The SAVE Act would require voters to present proof of citizenship and a voter ID when casting ballots in elections. I'm Jarrett Lewis on the level, on the go, and on WIBC.com.
Spring showers might bring flowers, but they can also bring roof leaks. Strong winds, heavy rain can expose hidden damage, leading to costly water issues inside your home. And the longer you wait, the worse it gets. Water seeping into your attic, walls, insulation, causing mold and rot, expensive structural damage. The good news is that Moss Roofing offers free inspections right now. Whether it's a small leak or a big roofing concern, their expert team will assess the damage and provide reliable, cost-effective solutions. With over 35 years of experience, Moss Roofing knows how to protect your home from the unpredictable spring weather. So don't wait for a minor drip to turn into a major repair. For top-notch roofing services, trust who I trust. Moss Roofing, to keep you dry this spring. For a job done right, every single time, visit mossroofing.com or call 317-747-3665. That's mossroofing.com, 317-747-3665, and let them know Tony Katz sent you. MOSS, mossroofing.com.
Only local real estate agent I'd trust with the sale of my home and actually finding me a new one. It's Mark Deedle. And Mark is used to dealing with challenging situations and making them simple and successful. Like Angie in Fairland was handling her mom's estate, needed to sell the home she grew up in. It was emotional, but the Deedle team handled the listing and repairs, secured a buyer, and sold the house after just 9 days on the market, stress-free. Find him at markdeedle.com, DIETEL.com.
Mark Deedle guarantees your home sold at a mutually agreed upon price and deadline, or he will buy it. You pick your move date, no long-term contracts, and you can cancel at any time. Call Mark Deedle today. Ask about the guarantee. 317-755-4232 or visit markdeedle.com. That's Mark, D-I-E-T-E-L, markdeedle.com.
State Senator Jim Buck is 80 years old, and decades in politics and government have changed him. Maybe once he voted like a conservative, but he's changed. How else can you explain why Senator Buck voted with liberal Democrats in Indianapolis to oppose President Trump's agenda on congressional redistricting? Or why Jim Buck voted to let China own Hoosier farmland, putting Hoosier families at risk? Or why Jim Buck voted to raise our gas tax, increasing your pain at the pump, against Trump, letting China own our land, increasing the gas tax. It's a pathetic and sad pattern, a sign of a politician who's been in office too long. Call State Senator Jim Buck at 317-232-9400. Tell him 32 years in politics and government is enough. Support Trump's policies or retire already. Paid for by Hoosier Leadership for America.
Listen, were you forced into getting a solar contract and now you just don't want it anymore? Maybe the solar company misled you. Or is your solar contract buried with hidden fees? Are you not saving the amount of money you thought you would on your energy costs? Don't worry. At the Solar Exit Hotline, we can help you cancel your solar contract, even if the panels are already installed. Our experienced legal team will review your contract and help you cancel it, possibly saving you thousands of dollars. You got to call right now for complete details. So listen, if you're not happy with your solar contract for any reason, we are here to help you cancel it. Call the Solar Exit Hotline now for immediate options to help you exit your solar contract. This call is 100% free.
800-798-9512. 800-798-9512. 800-798-9512. That's 800-798-9512.
Are you going to stand there with a straight face and act like you don't have mold in your crawl space? Call Swankco, 317-407-1868, SwankcoLLC.com.
The Attorney General's office wants to put your money back in your pocket. Visit IndianaUnclaimed.gov and search for yourself, your loved ones, or your business. It's fast, easy, and free.
So attaching the SAVE Act to a FISA reauthorization is classic Washington politics. But this time done with a purpose, right? Getting conservative priorities through while the left resists at every turn. But we also have to question, is it just the left that is resisting? So you've got Anna Paulina Luna, representative from Florida, said the only realistic way to pass the SAVE Act through the Senate is to attach it to a must-pass reauthorization of FISA. And she said that on X that the Senate has failed the American people by refusing to advance the SAVE Act. So now we have to we got to attach it to something else. That is so typical Washington politics.
Actually, what I love about this is we heard something similar. We had some audio yesterday or the day before from Senator John Kennedy who talked about this. And he talked about the way, we know that the SAVE Act is held up in the Senate right now because the Democrats can filibuster it. You essentially need 60 votes to get anything passed, for the most part, out of the Senate. Now, there are some ways around that, and Donald Trump has really been pushing, Majority Leader John Thune to get rid of the filibuster. Mm-hmm. Okay, there's pros and cons with that, because as soon as you get rid of it for this specific situation, then when the Democrats are in power, the Republicans don't have it a tool to block, crazy Democrat issues that they want to push through. But Senator John Kennedy mentioned including it in a reauthorization bill, and that's what Anna Luna is talking about here, putting it in
a different one.
Just talking about putting it in the FISA reauthorization bill. And I thought it was interesting that Senator Kennedy at the time said that he's in the minority by having it put inside of another bill for reauthorization like this. So I think it's great to hear that Representative Anna Paulina Luna has come out kind of basically saying the same thing that Senator Kennedy said is, look, we don't have to nuke the filibuster. There are other ways that we can get this done, and here's a great way to do it. I think we need more people from Congress to start pushing this so that Senator Kennedy doesn't feel like he's in the minority with this option anymore.
Right. So what you've got here is that people like her trying to work within the system to defend fair elections. She's trying to get it done any way possible. And strategy matters. If you believe in election security and you support these tactics, that's actually going to get the job done. It's not symbolic that you've got, Thune saying, oh, we don't have the votes, so it's going to fail. Well, put it into something else then that won't fail.
Yeah, it's really smart, and I think that it's been clear, at least my interpretation of it is John Thune doesn't want this act passed, and that's been part of the problem here is that, yeah, I know that we need to get at least all the Republicans and a bunch of Democrats if we're going to get to 60 votes in the Senate and get this passed, but we haven't even be able to get all the Republicans on board with this. We know none of the Democrats are going to come on board with this, but we can't even get the Republicans on board with it. He said that he doesn't want to nuke the filibuster, and I understand that. I get it, but there are these other ways, and this is typical. The Senate is filled with parliamentary procedures and tricks that they can do to kind of either stall bills or move them forward, and that's baked into the way the Senate operates. We're never going to get rid of this. So sometimes you got to look for creative solutions, and putting it as part of the FISA Act reauthorization seems to be a pretty darn good creative solution.
It's a creative workaround, isn't it?
Absolutely it is. And I don't understand why Senator Kennedy feels like he's in the minority with this strategy. It seems to be like, okay, great, let's tuck it into something else we want. So that gets me back to the point that I made that I think there's a lot of Republicans, unfortunately, that don't want this passed, which completely blows my mind. I don't understand how you can have an 80-20 issue, which voter ID is. The conservatives and Republicans are on the 80% side. Stupid Democrats are on the 20% side, and yet you've got this option, but Senator Kennedy thinks he's in the minority with it.
There are some people that say that it is a concerted uniparty effort to end Donald Trump, lose the midterms, have him impeached, have him removed, and that's where they hope that the MAGA movement completely dies. John Thune says that the SAVE Act will be brought to the Senate floor for a vote, maybe next week.
We don't have the votes either to proceed, get on a talking filibuster, nor to sustain one if we got on it. But that is just a function of math, and there isn't anything I can do about that. I mean, I understand the president's got a passion to see this issue addressed, as we all do.
Does he understand that, though?
Well, we've conveyed that to him, but we will continue to make that argument because I think it's important that everybody understand that this really is about the votes, it's about the math, and I'm for better or worse, I'm the one who has to be the clear-eyed realist about what we can achieve here. And so we'll continue to convey that, and I think that we're going to have the fight on the floor. We're going to vote on this. We're going to put it up, and we'll give the Democrats the opportunity to cast their vote on whether or not they think non-citizens ought to vote in American elections.
He's saying we don't have the votes. That's why he hasn't called it. He's saying this is all math. Okay. Call it and let's see exactly who is refusing to vote for it.
Exactly.
Get them on the record.
This concept that we can only bring something to the floor if we know that we've got all the votes. No, I don't care about that. I want every single politician to vote on this and tell us, where do you stand on voter ID? And I want you on the record.
Show us your cards.
Exactly. Show us what you got. I want you on the record as to where you stand on this issue that 80% of Americans support. But for some reason, we've been fighting for months and months and can't get any movement on this. Yes, John Thune should absolutely call a vote and make everyone go on record as to where they stand.
You've got even The View admitting that this is a issue that most people, majority of people in this country support.
83% support voter ID requirements, 95% of Republicans, 71% of Democrats, 76% of Black people, 82% of Latino, 85. Like, you go across the board, people are okay with that.
Listen to those numbers they just threw out there. I mean, that is, I don't know if there's another issue in this country right now that has that much support behind it across all racial demographics, across all political demographics, across the board. And so I go back to this point that I think John Thune, by not calling this vote, is protecting some Republicans that don't want this.
Yeah.
Because if it was just Democrats that had to go on the record and all the Republicans supported, then why not just call the vote? Get everybody out there. And can you imagine, stack those two things together? The president at his State of the Union saying, I want you to stand up if you believe we should focus on American citizens first and not illegal aliens. And then you had that image of all of the Democrats sitting on their hands, and then stack that with calling a vote on this and making all the Democrats go on record against it. Even if it doesn't pass, that's still valuable for two reasons. Not only do we know where everybody stands, but also that is going to make a great campaign commercial come November.
Show your true colors. Let's see what you stand for. So you've got Chuck Schumer, and he's saying that the Save America Act will allow ICE to kick tens of millions of people off the voter rolls. So here you have Chuck Schumer admitting the voter rolls are plagued with illegals.
It's about voter registration. It makes it allows ICE to kick tens of millions of people off the rolls, and they don't tell them until Election Day, and you show up and you say, you're not registered anymore, you're not registered here, you're not on the rolls. And they say, I didn't know that. This is a bill that destroys the country, and it is not about showing ID when you show up to vote. It's about the voter registration rolls, destroying them, purging them, not letting people know, and taking the rights in a algorithm put together by ICE, put together by Doge and Musk. It's an outrage, and that's why so many people don't want to pass it.
How many more trigger bombs could he throw off in there?
Right.
ICE, Doge, Musk. I'm surprised you didn't call it fascism. You want to call everybody Nazis, but that has become, I mean, ICE is the new fascism, it's the new Nazi. It's the trigger word that the Democrats use to throw in there when it really has nothing to do with any of that, to get people all worked up and to name call across the board.
Chuck Schumer making the argument, but I know in his mind he's making the argument of why not to pass it. But in my mind, that's the argument for passing it.
Right. We'll get maybe a ton of illegals purged off the voter rolls and won't allow them to vote. Oh, and by the way, it's it's Musk, it's Doge, it's ICE. And if you support this, you don't like dogs too.
So here's the White House press secretary, and she's saying that the act does not prohibit anyone from voting, with the exception of illegal aliens.
Media. Let me be very clear. The Save America Act does not prohibit anyone from voting with the exception of illegal aliens. And the greatest way to disenfranchise American citizens from voting in American elections is to allow illegal aliens to vote, which is what Democrats want to do. We see it taking place in Democrat jurisdictions at the state and local level across this country. So the Save America Act corrects that. And as far as married women who have changed their name, if they're already registered to vote, they're entirely unaffected by the Save Act. And for the small fraction of individuals who have changed their name or their address, they can still register to vote. Of course, they just have to go through their state processes to update that documentation. And this is something that the American people, married women and minorities and people all across this country who Democrats are insultingly saying cannot do this, they're already doing it every day, going to the Social Security office, going to the DMV. And I think it's frankly insulting that the Democrats are saying that there's certain groups of people in this country who aren't smart enough to update their documentation to allow them to vote. Again, this is a huge myth, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to address it.
Yep, you've got some Republicans who aren't backing down from this, and they're going to be using procedural tools to make sure that bills like this pass, and even attach it to other things.
I love that audio from Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, too, because she says what all of us have been thinking, and really we've seen it posted on social media for years now. The Democrats think you're too dumb. They think you're too dumb to be able to register to vote.
You're listening to 93 WIBC.
Coming up on Tony Katz today, Republicans want to end the war with Iran, and they want to stop talking about mass deportations. What in the world are they doing? That's after the news at noon on 93 WIBC.
March is an exciting time of the year, and we want you to go all the way. That's why Hubler's got you covered with the best warranty around. During tax time, bring in your refund. We'll double it towards your down payment, up to $2,000. Shop any of Hubler's 13 locations or online at drivehubler.com. Choose from over 2,000 vehicles, all makes and models. Plus, get even more for your trade. Bring Hubler your old car for an immediate appraisal on the spot. And up to $2,000 more for your trade. Every Hubler Q-certified vehicle is covered by a 100,000-mile limited powertrain warranty and a free Carfax history report. Tax time at Hubler means you get more for your refund. Up to $2,000 more at any of our 13 convenient locations or visit drivehubler.com. Cover me! Warranty on select models less than 9 years old. Deductions for high mileage maintenance reconditioning. See dealer for details.
You love spring and Indy, but you hate to paint, so do what Judy did. She called Rhino Shield.
The house that Rhino Shield did for my husband and I, after having the house painted with kind of usual house paint, I was seeing cracks appearing about every 3 years and just wasn't very satisfied with that.
Rhino Shield's a ceramic coating specifically formulated for our unique climate.
I can't speak highly enough about the Rhino Shield crew. They also were great at working with me to get the exact right color because I was very particular.
Indy, you too can have the guaranteed protection of Rhino Shield right now for 15% off the regular price.
I would not hesitate to call Rhino Shield, and I am just thrilled to recommend Rhino Shield to my friends and neighbors and family.
Here's Rhino Shield's Shane Smith.
This offer is limited, so call me at 888-RHINO-41. That's 888-RHINO-41.
Don't paint.
Don't vinyl.
Go Rhino!
Paint your house again. Rhino Shield. I work here.
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 We all work here at Radio 1 Indianapolis, one of the most diverse media groups in the world. We bring very different backgrounds and ideas together to create the best information and entertainment around. And right now, we're looking for someone to join the family. We have a sales assistant position available. If you've got great organizational skills and an interest in media and entertainment, we want to talk to you. Apply now at radio1.com/careers. Bilingual preferred. Radio 1 is an equal opportunity employer.
This month, get zero resified from Indy's #1 carpet cleaner. Buy one room of carpet cleaning, get one free. Unlimited rooms. Yep, unlimited. Living rooms, bedrooms, basements. Buy one, get one free throughout your home. Winter left behind salt and slush, dust and allergens. The heroes at Zero Res remove that buildup so your home feels fresh again without any soap residue or harsh chemicals. So beat the spring rush. Call 317-388-5141. Visit ZeroResIndy.com and you ask for the WIBC special.
One of life's greatest mysteries has finally been solved.
Who let the dogs out? Spruce, spruce, spruce.
It's Spruce, the weed and grass killer that's safe for use around people, pets, and bees when used as directed. Spray the leaves for visible results in just 1 hour and dead weeds in just 1 day. You spray, they play. Spruce, pet friendly, weed deadly. Find wherever weed killers are sold.
LifeLock, how can I help?
The IRS said I filed my return,
But I haven't.
1 in 4 tax-paying Americans has paid the price of identity fraud.
what do I do?
My refund, though.
I'm freaking out.
Don't worry, I can fix this.
LifeLock fixes identity theft guaranteed and gets your money back with up to $3 million in coverage.
I'm so relieved.
No problem. I'll be with you every step of the way.
1 in 4 was a fraud-paying American. Not anymore. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS at LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
Weekday mornings at 7:15, the Tony Katz Popcorn Moment. Brought to you by Boer Remodeling. Don't wait any longer for the kitchen you've been dreaming of. Request a consultation at BoerRemodeling.com.
Celebrate with WIBC Saturday with the Home and Garden Show live at Sullivan's, 71st and Keystone for the Father Glenn St. Patty's Day Party. Irish-inspired dishes and beer, plus live entertainment with 100% of ticket sales donated to Seeds of Hope nonprofit.
It is time for the best audio of the day, and we have to tap into a silly but surprisingly divisive internet debate about how to say a brand name. People online just love taking these small quirks and turning them into these big viral conversations, especially when your pet is involved. So what you have here is a comedian. His name is Ben Lapidus, and he turned a joke into a full song. It ended up racking up millions of views and sparked an online debate about PetSmart. He wants to know, is it PetSmart or PetSmart?
I got a question. Is it PetSmart or PetSmart? Are you saying that pets are smart? Or are you saying you're a mart for pets? I need answers! Which one is it?
Music is aggressive.
Yeah, so we put this video online, and it's like 4 or 5 dudes sitting around in an office. They're just wearing white shirts and ties and their dress pants, and all of a sudden he just starts blaring that.
Look, we've got a lot of problems in this country. We've got a war with Iran. We're talking about the SAVE Act and voter ID. It's always good to have something lighter in here, and I do love a silly nonsense topic like this where the debate goes next level on social media. My assumption, I always assumed it was PetSmart. That's the way I always thought of it, is PetSmart. If you own a pet and this is the smart way to take care of your pet here at PetSmart, I never even thought of it as a possessive pets, P-E-T apostrophe S, mart.
Well, PetSmart finally weighed in. They clarified the company sees it as PetSmart.
Yo, we heard you've got a question. And you want answers. Is it PetSmart or PetSmart? It's PetSmart! Case closed.
So no more screaming. You're scaring the pets.
So they say the emphasis is on pet first. PetSmart, I mean, they should have hired these guys for guerrilla marketing, you know?
Yeah, right, exactly. What did we talk about last week? The fast food
Brilliant
industry.
move.
Fast food industry had their best marketing ever with the silly little burger wars with the CEOs, and now this is probably the best marketing that PetSmart could have ever come up with. And again, I love silly internet debates. It's kind of like a palate cleanser with all the bad news in the world. Whether you go back to the dress and what color is it blue and black or is it gray? You remember that one, but there's been many of these over the years. Mexican pizza. Talked about that on this show before. You know, you talk about, the Mexican pizza goes away, and all of a sudden everybody online loses their mind because I can't get it at Taco Bell anymore. I love a good, silly debate, and I'm glad to see that I was on the right side of this debate. Obviously, it's PetSmart.
So PetSmart started as Pet Food Warehouse 1987. They rebranded to PetSmart in 1989 with pet and smart in different colors so you would get the hint. Officially became PetSmart in 2005. We've got Corey Grass, who's going to join us next, former FBI special agent, and we're going to talk about sleeper cells and more. That's on the way from 93 WIBC.
Look at you sitting there all stuck in traffic and paying more because of State Senator Greg Walker. That's because in the state Senate, Greg Walker voted to raise our gas tax. You believe that? And Greg Walker opposed President Trump's plan to remove liberal Democrats from Congress. That could mean more road funding for New York, not Indiana. So next time you're stuck in traffic, think about this. Greg Walker voted for higher gas taxes and opposed President Trump's policies. Are those the kind of conservative values we want in the state Senate? Yeah, I didn't think so. President Trump calls Greg Walker a rhino and a loser, and he's right. We don't have to be stuck with Rhino Greg Walker. Call Greg Walker at 317-232-9400. Tell him to support lower gas taxes and President Trump's agenda. Paid for by Hoosier Leadership for America.
Hey, what's going on? It's Hammer from the Hammer and Nigel show. And I'm not going to lie to you. I needed help. I got a bald spot in the back of my head, and it's embarrassing. I see it when I'm on television. I see it when I'm on the YouTube channel. So I decided to reach out for help. And my friends at We Grow Hair Indie decided to help me out here. These guys are the absolute best. I was a little leery about it. I could not have a procedure that, one, hurt, or two, left me looking like I'd been scalped. But after I talked with Darren and the entire team at We Grow Hair Indie, they told me their state-of-the-art technology, the progress made in hair growth, it's going to be okay. If I can do this, you guys can do this. Contact the team at We Grow Hair Indie, 317-522-2995. That's 522-2995. Get that free evaluation. It's free. You can also go online to WeGrowHairIndie.com. Contact them today and do this with me. WeGrowHairIndie.com.
For 22 years, Exercise Inc. has helped Hoosiers build muscle, lose weight, and transform their health, creating lifelong habits. Only takes 20 minutes once a week. Visit exerciseinc.com.
Save hundreds of dollars with free delivery plus low price guarantees on quality brand name furniture and mattresses.
Only at Thompson Furniture and Mattress in Columbus.
LifeLock, how can I help?
The IRS said I filed my return, but I haven't.
1 in 4 tax-paying Americans has paid the price of identity fraud.
What do I do?
My refund, though.
I'm freaking out.
Don't worry, I can fix this.
LifeLock fixes identity theft guaranteed and gets your money back with up to $3 million in coverage.
I'm so relieved.
No problem. I'll be with you every step of the way.
1 in 4 was a fraud-paying American. Not anymore. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS at LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
LD Smith Plumbing. a dirty, stinking honest.
With 0% financing for up to 2 years, upgrading your home has never been easier. Go to bwindow.com. Trust your home to be.
Trust me.
This hour is powered by Swankco, Indy's most trusted crawl space and basement contractor.
In 2 minutes from the Dugan Air Heating and Cooling Mitsubishi Electric Studios, more details coming in from the National Weather Service about the severe weather, including a few tornadoes that hit the state last night and into this morning, where police in Indy have been taken to over the past 12 hours, and the situation with some TSA agents at the Indianapolis airport. You're listening to 93 WIBC, WIBC HD1 Indianapolis.
More oil is about to flow. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. On day 12 of the conflict with Iran that's raised both the price of oil and gasoline.
The International Energy Agency says it will make 400 million barrels of oil available from its emergency reserves. It's the largest ever release of its kind, more than double the number released in 2022 when Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The Paris-based IEA has 32 member countries.
That's Fox's Jonathan Savage. Not much reaction to that in the oil trading markets. Still around $86 a barrel, up 3% today, but way lower than the $100+ mark it spiked above on Monday. A key oil shipping lane remains a big part of the conflict.
After Iran threatened to mine the Strait of Hormuz, the U.S. military Central Command releasing new videos showing those Iranian ships, those 16 mine-laying vessels getting destroyed, including a drone strike on a midget sub. Since the beginning of the war, the Strait of Hormuz has been effectively shut, including all the natural gas and oil and fertilizer, but Iran ships 90% of its oil through there as well, and up to 50% of China's.
Fox's Lucas Tomlinson. President Trump told Axios this morning the clash with Iran will end anytime he wants it to end, adding there's practically nothing left to target. And more Americans are fleeing the Middle East. The State Department now says 43,000 have returned as they assist more. There's death and destruction in 2 states and a lot of tornado damage to clean up.
In Lake Village, Indiana.
Multiple homes destroyed. Lake Village took a direct hit, so please stay away from the area.
Fire crews confirming the worst, 2 deaths in Lake Village as search and rescue operations continue from the same tornado that battered Kankakee, Illinois.
They hit this building behind us and some of the buildings a little bit farther north, but the buildings on the east side of the road have been damaged as well.
Assistant Fire Chief Dal Emerson, a grapefruit-sized hail also reported in Kankakee. Trees and power lines down, thousands without power.
That's Jeff Manasso. America's listening to Fox News.
93 WIBC Mobile News. On the level, on the go.
Now assessing the damage. Skies are mostly cloudy, the sun trying to peek through. It's 62 in the Circle City with today's high around 71. A wind advisory remains in effect until 5 p.m. I'm Jarrett Lewis. It's 11:02. At least 2 people died after a radar-confirmed tornado tore through northwest Indiana Tuesday night, causing major damage around Lake Village in Newton County. Crews found the victims while searching the area for anyone who might have been hurt.
For the Newton County area, we do have 2 people out, and then as we go towards Wheatfield in Jasper County, we also have another team of 2 heading to that area. 4 people in total going to be working that way.
Scott Baker at the National Weather Service office in Chicago says the agency is checking damage in Illinois and Indiana to determine how many tornadoes hit and how strong they were. The severe thunderstorms that came through early this morning resulting in flood advisories being sent out to areas between Crawfordsville and Kokomo, also down south along the White River. At times, winds were as strong as 60 miles per hour. A few counties in northeast and southeast Indiana still under a tornado watch until next hour. Indianapolis police say they found a woman dead in the backyard of a home on the city's west side Tuesday night. The Marion County Coroner's Office has identified her as 51-year-old Kimberly Stewart. IMPD is investigating the death as a homicide. The department also says a 15-year-old boy is in stable condition after being shot on Indy's far east side also last night. A Marion County father is claiming Hancock County is blocking his 50-50 custody fight. Johnette Cruz has more.
Zachary claims a conflict of interest involving the child's grandmother, who works for the prosecutor's office, has created an uneven playing field. He points to a series of denied motions and stalled venue changes as evidence of local influence.
Honestly, I'd love to have just 50-50 custody of my daughter. We both have equal rights to her. I want to spend more time with my daughter. I want to be in her life. I lot more. I've missed out like a lot.
Hancock County Prosecutor Brent Eaton denies those claims in a statement, saying the employee in question works in the criminal division, which is entirely separate from civil custody matters. Johnette Cruz, 93 WIBC Mobile News.
The Pacers falling to the Sacramento Kings last night out on the West Coast, 114-109. Indiana will return home tomorrow to play the Phoenix Suns. And it's go time tonight for the Indiana Hoosiers. They take on Northwestern in the Big Ten tournament in Chicago. Head coach Darren DeVries says they need Lamar Wilkerson to be at his best.
His ability at this level to be able to get into the interior of the defense, get to his mid-range, getting a little bit more of his post-ups. He started to utilize that a little bit more late in the year.
Tip-off tonight is at 6:30 Eastern Time. The winner will move on to play Purdue. I'm Jarrett Lewis on The Level, on the go, and at WIBC.com.
So it's been a few weeks using the 3-step system from the Good Feet store, and it has been incredible. The Good Feet store. You've heard me talk about it. You've driven by it many times, and you're like, what is that place? That's the place to go to get rid of pain, because the pain is emanating from your foot. The issues with your knees, your hips, your lower back, that's because your foot doesn't have the proper support. The arches aren't they're not being taken care of. And with the Good Feet store and their free, no obligation personalized fitting, you get started on your path to feeling better all the way up and down your body. And now when I wear my Good Feet arch supports made in the USA, 100% US origin materials with a lifetime warranty, it's massaging. It's amazing. It's a 3-step system, and you got to commit yourself to the system. But the result, it's fantastic. Talk to the Good Feet store about that plantar fasciitis, about that knee or hip pain. Talk to one of their arch support specialists today. The Good Feet store has 2 Indy area locations, at Clearwater at the Crossing and in Greenwood just off 65. Online at goodfeet.com. That's goodfeet.com.
Good morning. Thanks for being here. My name is Casey Daniels. That is Jim. And we have joining us in the studio right now, former special FBI agent Corey Grass. Spent 20 years in counterterrorism, also counterintelligence. And we've got a lot of questions, and hopefully you have answers. I wanted to start off with this report. It came from ABC News. They said that Iran may be activating sleeper cells outside the country. Little alert. And then just yesterday, Ted Cruz says that the United States should prepare for terrorist attacks from Iranian sleeper cells located in the country. Here's Ted Cruz.
Are you concerned about sleeper cells? There's been discussion of that.
Look, the risk of terrorism right now is quite high. We tragically saw in Austin, Texas, just last weekend, we saw a terrorist attack. We also saw another terrorist attack in New York City. There is a heightened danger of terrorism right now, and I will say it is particularly indefensible that Democrats have shut down the Department of Homeland Security while we are facing an enhanced terrorist risk. The Department of Homeland Security exists to guard against terrorist attacks. The danger has never been higher than right now, particularly after 4 years of open borders under Joe Biden. We know that radical Islamic terrorists entered this country, and there's a vulnerability all across this country. It is disgraceful and indefensible for the Democrats to vote party line not to fund the Department of Homeland Security right now. We need to open it up and fully fund it.
Got it. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so Ted Cruz is saying that the risk of terrorist attacks within the country is at an all-time high. So Corey Grass, former FBI special agent, how does the FBI view the risk of threats like sleeper cells?
Well, good morning, and thanks for having me again. I've been retired for 3 years, but I think I can pretty confidently say that it's the same as it was when I left. It is a high risk. You notice Senator Cruz there responded to her question almost before she could finish her question. He was so emphatic in his knowledge and his beliefs. So I'd be on the same page. I think there's a high risk, and I'm sure there's a lot of activity right now that has been ramped up to respond to that risk as well.
How does the FBI coordinate with other agencies when military actions like this are happening?
Well, one of the great things the FBI does is they have these task forces that involve state, locals, and also other federal agencies. I was a part of task force, the Violent Crime Task Force in Miami, Florida when I was down there, and then the Joint Terrorism Task Force here in Indiana. It's made up of a lot of FBI agents, but also other federal agencies, Homeland Security. They will have Secret Service. So it depends on the type of task force, but the Joint Terrorism Task Force has a lot of state and local. So Indiana State Police is the biggest partner for the FBI in Indiana. They have several members on the task force, and also, Indianapolis. It depends on the part of the state they're in, but there's also predominantly state and locals make up those task forces to share information, both that they learn from the field when their officers are out making stops, doing interviews, making arrests, and then also the FBI can share information from a national level or international level back to those same task force officers that have security clearances as well.
Now, I think it's important to make a couple distinctions here between a sleeper cell and a lone wolf, because I think what we've seen right now are a couple of what would typically called lone wolves. That was the issue in Austin, probably the issue of what happened in New York City. How does the FBI approach those two? What is the difference between the two, and how does the FBI differentiate in the way they approach each?
I think to oversimplify a little bit, a sleeper cell has been prepared in advance to do some sort of terrorist act.
They're asleep until they're activated.
Yeah, they're preparing for it. A lone wolf is probably more traditionally somebody who gets fired up more recently and goes and makes a rash decision or has been coached at the very last second. And we talked about this last week. That's why the lone wolf is so hard to stop, because there's no communication going back and forth. There's no activity leading up to that, preparing with either weapons and things. It's all at the last minute predominantly. And the sleeper cells would be a bigger concern probably because of the amount of damage they could do and the preparations they've put in to try and get to that stage.
Now, does sleeper cell automatically mean that they're either in communication or receiving support from, like, let's say, Iran in this specific instance?
I think that's a safe assumption, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
and that's why the planning takes place in advance, so they can be activated when it's necessary.
We've got former FBI Special Agent Corey Grass joining us in the studio, and you just heard that clip from Ted Cruz. Do you think he's spot on with that, saying that the all-time risk is greater than it's ever been?
Very much so. I think the current times we live in, the environment for politics and terrorism, world events, there's a lot of tension right now everywhere, in the country, outside the country. So I think he's spot on. Again, I agree with him the vast majority of the time when I hear him speak or the things he writes about. So I do think he's spot on.
Now, what you were a special agent in the FBI for a long time, and I'm assuming part of that happened during the global war on terror when George Bush was president. And I'm looking at this from just a civilian standpoint, because I remember, Afghanistan in 2001 and Iraq in 2003, and there was a lot of talk of sleeper cells and lone wolves, and we had the color-coded alert chart and see something, say something, and you had this administration that seemed to be kind of preparing the American people for that. And then you have kind of the opposite here, where Donald Trump really hasn't been talking about this. There hasn't been much mention about it. We don't have any sort of coordinated campaigns like see something, say something, or the color-coded chart. What's your view on how this is being directed differently from the last time?
There does seem to be some mixed messaging coming out of the White House right now from D.C. about the war ending soon or not ending soon. And I know there's a lot of politics involved in that, but I mentioned it last week on your show. I think simplify it as much as you can. See something, say something is it. I don't color codes, numbers, letters. It gets confusing. When I was in local law enforcement and/or federal, just simplify it for everybody. When things go bad, you're not going to be able to figure out codes and numbers and colors in your head. It's just be alert, be aware of what's going on around you, and communicate those things to people. So I do think this administration is doing a good job of not firing people up or getting people too scared, but also preparing them enough to be aware of what's going on.
So Donald Trump did say that we've been very much on top of it. One of the things we have to do is get the Democrats to stop the Democrat shutdown, because, as you know, that apparatus looks into that, and he's talking about DHS. Can you tell us what are some of the warning signs or indicators that you identify, what you look into? Is there a profile of people that we should be nervous about?
We talked again a little bit last week about this, and I think we talked personally off the air about this also, but anyone who cannot quit talking about a topic, that they're radicalized, I don't care what the topic is. If you bring up the weather, they go back to that topic. It doesn't have to be terrorism related necessarily, but during my time in the Bureau of Prisons with the FBI, they loaned me out for 7 years. They were nice enough to put me inside a prison in Terre Haute, Indiana for 7 years without asking. So my desk was in the prison. It was mostly convicted terrorists. They were called them specialized threat groups. But over time, it became more anti-abortion people that were willing to commit violence, sovereign citizens, again, who literally could not have a conversation without getting back to that topic. And the same with terrorists in that unit. If you mentioned the weather, they would go back to their topic.
And that's why they're radicalized. They can't get away from it. They just can't shut up about it.
And this is a very small, probably bad example, but I put on social media yesterday on Facebook that I was going to be on your show.
Mm-hmm.
I got one quick response from someone in my local area that's former politician, a little elderly, but immediately went to the topic of ICE and calling me bad things, and immediately and my post was simply, we're going to be talking about the threat environment and how to protect yourself from potential terrorist events. And it came out that somehow the real terrorists were ICE and that I was part of the problem. And so if you're that hyper-focused on something, I didn't talk about ICE, I wasn't talking about immigration, I simply said, be on the show talking about these things, and it went right back to that topic.
And that's where they
again.
went.
Yep.
Yeah, that's where their mind went.
I want to go back to what we talked about just a minute ago as to what the average American or the average Hoosier can do. And you said, see something, say something is really kind of the simplest way of doing it. What does that look like? I see something, I see a neighbor who seems to talk about a topic incessantly, just generally looks suspicious. What should I do? Should I contact my local law enforcement? Should I, Google the local FBI branch phone number? Who should I reach out to?
Yes and yes. It doesn't matter how you get it there. Just do something. Every local police department will have a non-emergency number. If you think it's that pressing, don't hesitate to call 911 and they'll understand. But every police department or sheriff's office will have a non-emergency response number you can call. The FBI has an Indiana main switchboard number. The federal FBI at the DC level has a switchboard level. There are websites you can go to. You just Google those FBI websites. I always focus on the FBI, but I mean DHS, Secret Service, ATF. There's a tons of places you can find to report information. They'll get it to the right people.
Okay, now I'm trying to put myself in the position of somebody that might be looking to do that, and I can see that there would be a certain percentage of the population that would be concerned about their own privacy. So can I leave tips anonymously, or am I going to be in a situation where I'm going to get this local law enforcement asking me a ton of questions about me and maybe putting myself out there that makes me uncomfortable? Is anonymous an option?
It is an option, yes.
Okay.
For sure. It sounds like you speak from personal experience. You got a little.
No, well, I mean, we have had situations where, they're not terrorism related, but not too long ago, Casey was the witness to a potential crime when we were traveling out of state.
That's true.
And the person filed a police report and gave
It was a sexual assault crime.
and gave her Casey's phone number and name, and and then she was followed up by local law enforcement after that. But I understand everybody probably has at least some certain level of concern about, hey, I don't want to put myself out there because I'm worried that then exposes me potentially. I just want to make sure that everybody knew that there's a way that you can do that and still keep your anonymity.
Sure, there is. And again, I'm teasing you a little bit, but I make light of it. But again, I was in local law enforcement for 10 years, federal for over 20. And when I see a police car behind me, I still have that,
You still slow down just
for
a
no
little
reason.
bit?
Yeah, probably for speeding or something silly. But yeah, it's just a natural reaction. And I'm one of them. It's me. And I know it's going to go fine if something happens, but you have that initial oh, geez.
So we've got former FBI Special Agent Corey Grass joining us, and we want to talk about what happened in New York and also have you explain what the Joint Terrorism Task Force is in the FBI, and we'll get to that coming up. You're listening to 93 WIBC.
Let's begin. Let's talk about your relationship.
I can't stand all these wild swings, Doc. It's driving me crazy. It's hot, it's cold.
How does that make you feel?
Oh, I'm so confused. I can't figure out how to act, what to wear.
Listen up, Buttercup. You're in Indiana. This is the way it is. Just listen to WIBC.
Are the weather swings about to put you in therapy? Save yourself the copay and listen to WIBC for updates, because it could change in the next 10 minutes.
Shall we schedule something next week?
Your winter therapy station, 93 WIBC.
Are you within 5 years of filing for Social Security? When you file impacts more than your benefits check. It could also impact your taxes, IRA, and 401k withdrawals, spousal benefits, and your Medicare premiums. Learn the best time for you to file for your benefits with a free customized Social Security analysis from Bill Demery, your retirement guy in Indy. This analysis pinpoints exactly how you could get the most out of your benefits while considering the impact on your taxes, IRA, and 401k withdrawals, spousal benefits, and more. Go to yourretirementguy.com to schedule that analysis.
And it's absolutely free. If you've saved more than $200,000 and have not yet filed for Social Security, schedule that free analysis right now by calling 317-648-5120. 317-648-5120 or go to yourretirementguy.com.
Hey, Wings Etc. fans, March 9th through 15th is Wing Schooner Madness. We're rolling back prices on award-winning wings and big ice-cold schooners. And we're rolling out the red carpet for you and your best buds to stop in, get crazy good deals, and get your mind right for the big dance bracketology that's just around the corner. Just 69 cents for wings and $5.50 for domestic schooners. Dine in only. From March 9th to 15th, get great deals during Wing Schooner Madness only at Wings Etc.
Wings Etc. Grill and Pub with 15 Central Indiana locations. Online at wingsetc.com.
Life insurance is one of those things that just about everybody needs, but few people actually have. Hey, if you die unexpectedly without life insurance, guess what? You'll leave your family with even a bigger mess. Life insurance will help replace your family's income. It'll help cover burial expenses. Life insurance can even help pay off debt like credit cards and medical bills. Life insurance can even pay for college. And if you own a business and you die, life insurance can help your business from collapsing. It can even help cover estate taxes. Life insurance has never been more affordable and needed. Plus, you can always shop around even if you have a plan and save some money. So call the Life Insurance Quote Line right now for free pricing information.
800-917-8730. 800-917-8730. 800-917-8730. That's 800-917-8730.
Hi, I'm Arielle Winter. If you're anything like me, your pets are not only your best friends, they're part of your family. American Humane, which has been rescuing animals like Cleo here for more than 100 years, has life-saving tips that can make a big difference in a disaster. When disaster strikes, you want to protect your whole family, including your pets. To help keep your family safe and help our best friends in their worst times, find tips at AmericanHumane.org.
This hour is powered by Swankco, Indy's most trusted crawl space and basement contractor.
Two men from Pennsylvania were arrested in connection with throwing an IED near the official residence of New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani at Gracie Mansion. And I'm curious, we're joined by Corey Grass, who is a former FBI special agent, spent 20 years in counterintelligence, counterterrorism. When does the line get crossed? When does something go from attempted murder or homicide into terrorism?
Typically, when it changes to terrorism is when you're committing a violent act or threatening to commit a violent act to coerce the public or your government for your own political or social agenda. You're trying to push your will by the threat of violence, traditionally.
Can you tell us how propaganda affects people in these areas? Because, we see so much online and influencers trying to sway people's minds in different areas.
It's obviously critically effective because people use it all the time. People pay for it. Other people just use it for their agenda for whatever group they work for or who they're with. And they're paid to do that as well sometimes. I mean, there's a lobbyist or propaganda people, like you said, social media influencers that jump on these topics as heavy as the Iran war or as light as what to wear or what you want to be seen doing.
Jim, do you have a question about this?
Well,
you said you wanted to ask about the IEDs.
I do want to get into this because what's happened in New York, and just as a quick recap, there was a protest that was happening outside the mayor of New York's house. It was more of a pro-military protest or pro-support of what the military actions taking place in Iran. And then there were some people that threw some IEDs that fortunately didn't go off, but they were real explosives with nails packed around them. And now it's just come out in the last day that the two men that were arrested for that situation, they raided a storage unit in Pennsylvania and found explosive residue there. So I'm always kind of fascinated between, what we saw in Austin, which was this lone wolf, and it seemed to be this guy in Austin that just kind of spur of the moment decided to go shoot up a place. These guys in New York seemed like there was more planning associated with it. How does the FBI go about this process? I mean, obviously they went to the effect of finding these storage units that these people investigate, but I'm just fascinated about the approach that the FBI takes and the difference between what looks to be Austin and what might be the situation in New York.
That's a long question.
Yeah.
I have about 10 things I want to bring up. We'll try to remember them all. It kind of gets back to the propaganda. Some of the things I read were the original protest there outside the mansion also involved in bringing a goat, a dead pig, and some things. So they're trying to use propaganda. They're trying to use their triggers to fire up the other side. And in this case, it worked. And then the other side committed the exact same kind of act that they were being accused of committing. So, but both sides got the attention they wanted. Both sides, we're talking about them in Indiana now because they've made themselves a name and a topic. How kind of your second part about the storage unit, and I mentioned you earlier off the air that I saw where they had a video now of one of the young men purchasing fireworks fuse a couple of days before that, which is amazing if you think about it. They went back somehow and found a store in Pennsylvania that sold him a $7 fuse, which seems kind of petty and small, but somehow probably a joint terrorism task force sent people out to start looking for security footage, talking to neighbors, talking to friends, social media, and somehow found previously from multiple days ago a fireworks fuse being purchased to tie it all in together.
So what you're saying is that there are indicators prior to incidents that can lead investigators, whether it be posts or purchases, communications, they all lead to the same thing.
Yeah, and we have to be very careful because, again, I thought about this when I was reading the article about the fireworks fuse. That in and of itself, just based on who he was, is not a good indicator. You don't want those people to call the police and say, I think he looks a certain way and did this because he's a terrorist. We don't want to cross that line. That's a bit too far. But if there were many years ago, when I was still on the Joint Terrorism Task Force, I believe it was in Denver, very similar type of event, except the guy was at a male was at a beauty supply place and pushing a shopping cart full of these exact same chemicals, and he got arrested later for making the bombs. They searched his place and that kind of stuff. So that would be a little bigger indicator.
It's a red flag.
Why do you have a shopping cart full of precursors?
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes in the FBI and around national security type things, when something like that happens, they will put out a canvas to all of their task forces to go out and interview anything remotely related to that topic. So if it's beauty supply houses, storage units, as Jim just mentioned, if something has been shown to be a part of a terrorist act, reactively we go and talk to many people, even pool supply places that would have chemicals that could be used.
Can you describe how self-radicalization typically looks in cases where individuals, they cite foreign extremist groups?
The internet. I mean, there's the simple answer for you is just excessive watching of videos on the internet. And some of these videos are horrific. The violent crimes that they commit against people and animals or anybody. It's horrific information, but it's relentless. And once they get hooked on watching it, that is most likely,
yeah.
And you'll notice this is typical street level crime or terrorism. Those people tend to gravitate towards people that are like-minded. So then they kind of radicalize each other. I mentioned you the prison I was in before. The Bureau of Prisons, and I'm speaking for them, but they had made a decision many years ago after 9/11 that they were going to put some very radical people in one unit and not bring them out of that unit, so that way they could just self-radicalize each other. Like we call it the Postgraduate School of Terrorism in the FBI. I did, but that way they weren't radicalizing the 3,300 inmates on the yard in Terre Haute.
Keeping the circle small.
Yeah.
Among each other. Okay. We're joined by Corey Grass, who is a former FBI special agent, spent 20 years in counterintelligence and counterterrorism. What is a joint terrorism task force in the FBI?
It's an administrative function that also brings all those same groups I mentioned earlier, state and local, especially state police in Indiana, other agencies together. But administratively, the FBI handles, they typically house them in our space. And we do have some of them detached out to the smaller resident agencies, such as Bloomington, Terre Haute, Evansville, and South Bend, all those areas. But some of the overtime functions are handled through the task force. They still work for their local department or their federal agency. They just sit in our space. And then the FBI handles the overtime issues for that. They basically act as an FBI agent. I mean, they have an FBI rental car. They have cell phones. They're basically acting as an agent.
Okay. So how do you guys balance tracking dangerous behavior with also respecting people's constitutional rights?
I mean, that's the tough part, right? I mean, that's such a kind of a vague question,
the balancing act?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to explain unless you're living it. I mean, again, and it depends on you have to take the totality of the circumstances. So if it turns out it's an ex-wife saying it, you take that with a little different grain of salt than you would say a next door neighbor.
Yep.
If it's somebody who makes a random complaint against someone and then you do some research on their social media and they do this on a regular basis, it kind of detracts from it. Again, if it's somebody who is independent, has legitimate concerns, and so you kind of go down that path and handle it a little differently, but that's the tough part. And that's one of the things that the terrorists exploit in our country. I thought about this after 9/11. I applied to the FBI prior to 9/11, got hired after 9/11, and a lot of things changed. The job I applied for wasn't really the job I got because so much changed, as was proven by the years of counterintelligence things and terrorism. But it's just, that's the tricky part, is figuring out what is our freedoms or what they're exploiting. And that's what they did on 9/11. They exploited our freedoms to travel freely and to have a knife on the plane or whatever it was. And that's the hard part, is always respecting people's right to speak and to act without promoting violence or committing a terrorist act.
You know, we talked off the air here during the break about how we were amazed at some of the video that was coming out of New York City, and we saw that one police officer that was shown, leaping a fence and running after in an extreme situation that's happening like that. how do cops prioritize what's the most important? Because it looked like the cop was running after the perpetrators when there might be a live bomb on the ground next to him. How does a
Protecting
police officer,
the civilians that are around?
how do you prioritize in the moment of a highly tense situation like that?
I once heard law enforcement described of hours of boredom interrupted by moments of sheer terror. And that it is, you're making a million decisions at one time. Not always right sometimes. That's the hard part for me. I get aggravated with people that critique law enforcement sometimes because, I can watch it later too on video in this nice bright studio. It's cool and calm. But when you're there, it's not the same. What you're hearing, what you're seeing, what you're living, and you got to make those split-second decisions. And they're generally right, but sometimes people make mistakes. I brought that up to you because the video is amazing of him chasing after the suspects. I believe a sergeant also went and ran towards the IEDs that he thought were still alive.
Correct.
So very
And
impressive.
that's counterintuitive. That's against your human nature to run to it.
For most people.
Yeah.
I mean, and I've been out for several years, and those are the parts you miss. It's crazy, the things, how you look at things. It's totally differently than most people.
You probably fall back on a lot of your muscle memory or training. It's instinctive for you. After years of doing it, that's just what you do. I would run the other way.
As an old man, I look at my young man self and critique the things I did 20 years ago and think it was insane. Why would I drive that fast in those conditions to get there before my buddy so I can handle the situation?
Yeah.
Looking at it now as an older guy with a family and a lot of life to hopefully live, I'm like, why did I
your risk assessment changes, right?
And thank God our military people act that way
and
think aggressively and aren't living in fear.
I wanted to share this one last article with you before you go so you can wade into the political arena, which is also a passion of yours. This is Corey Grass, who is a former FBI special agent, joining us. 5 scenarios for how the Iran war could end. And I'll just list these, and your experience being in hostile areas, tell me what you think if any of these are plausible. Number 1, negotiated ceasefire and nuclear deal. Iran and U.S., they hold 3 rounds of indirect nuclear talks in Geneva, and just days before and then, or just days after, and then a deal is struck. You have the Venezuela model. You have popular uprising and then regime collapse. Special forces raid on nuclear stockpile. And then finally, Trump declares victory and withdraws.
The first 3 didn't seem very likely to me. They were the least likely, I believe, to take place. I think the latter, I think you said 5. I thought there were the latter 3 maybe, but the latter one seemed more likely in my mind.
Special forces raid on nuclear stockpile, and then Trump declares victory and withdraws.
Those, I think maybe even one before that. I can't remember what that one was. The
popular uprising and regime collapse.
Yeah, that's probably not real likely in my mind either, just based on the history of what I know about the region. I think we talked about this last week. I can't remember if it was on the air or off the air, but the war seemed to go very well early on, which is very normal because that's the easy part, I think. In my humble opinion, that is, we dominate the military field with the technology we have. I mean, even here in southern Indiana, Crane Naval Base does amazing things. I worked with them for years in the FBI. It's just insane what we have in our backyard to help the warfighter. It's super impressive. The hard part is now who takes over that country.
Yeah,
that's the long term. I've heard Jim rant on this on the air many times. Because it's true. I mean, that is the real cost is there. Like you said, if we left now, I mean, in my mind, it's a huge victory. I mean, it's been super. We've had a few losses of life, which is terrible, but
it's going to be completely unstable.
Correct.
And then you could potentially have had a younger version of the Ayatollah in power, and
very likely.
So what did we do? What did we accomplish then?
The hard part is the long term, and that's why I can't answer your question really well. But there's going to have to be some sort of long term intervention, which I hope is not the case. But if not, I think we just go back to. I mean, we've set them back decades. Hopefully, that's the best part. But I'm very hesitant to be too optimistic because of the decades, if not hundreds of thousands of years of history there. That it doesn't seem real likely.
Well, generations too.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a good memory. We remember what happened in Iraq in 2003, and it's hard not to make comparisons to what's going on right now.
Corey Grass, we appreciate your insight. Thank you for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
You going to come next week too?
Absolutely.
We'll talk some more.
Love to.
Former FBI Special Agent Corey Grass. You're listening to 93 WIBC.
Spring showers might bring flowers, but they can also bring roof leaks. Strong winds, heavy rain can expose hidden damage, leading to costly water issues inside your home. And the longer you wait, the worse it gets. Water seeping into your attic, walls, insulation, causing mold and rot, expensive structural damage. The good news is that Moss Roofing offers free inspections right now. Whether it's a small leak leak or a big roofing concern, their expert team will assess the damage and provide reliable, cost-effective solutions. With over 35 years of experience, Moss Roofing knows how to protect your home from the unpredictable spring weather. So don't wait for a minor drip to turn into a major repair. For top-notch roofing services, trust who I trust. Moss Roofing, to keep you dry this spring. For a job done right, every shingle time, visit mossroofing.com or call 317-747-3665. That's mossroofing.com, 317-747-3665. And let them know Tony Katz sent you. M-O-S-S, mossroofing.com.
Wesley is a truck driver.
I drive a truck, and I love what I do.
A truck driver with IRS troubles.
They told me I owed them $43,000.
It got really bad.
Quite a few letters in the mail. They were talking about wage garnishment, coming after my house, my car. Yeah, they don't play around. I seriously thought that I was going to lose everything.
One sleepless night, Wesley finally made a call to Optima Tax Relief at 2 a.m.
Kind of figured I'd get a machine, but I didn't. I actually got to talk to an actual person in the middle of the night.
He found just what he was looking for.
Oh, they were great people. You need a team of people that know what they're doing. Optima Tax, they know what they're doing.
Optima Tax Relief came through with flying colors.
I saved an incredible amount of money. Happy don't even come close. I was absolutely overjoyed.
Take Wesley's advice.
If you're in any kind of trouble with the IRS, call Optima Tax Relief. Don't trust anybody else.
Call Optima for a free consultation. Call 800-598-4799. 800-598-4799. 800-598-4799.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
State Senator Jim Buck is 80 years old, and decades in politics and government have changed him. Maybe once he voted like a conservative, but he's changed. How else can you explain why Senator Buck voted with liberal Democrats in Indianapolis to oppose President Trump's agenda on congressional redistricting? Or why Jim Buck voted to let China own Hoosier farmland, putting Hoosier families at risk? Or why Jim Buck voted to raise our gas tax, increasing your pain at the pump, against Trump, letting China own our land, increasing the gas tax. It's a pathetic and sad pattern, a sign of a politician who's been in office too long. Call State Senator Jim Buck at 317-232-9400. Tell him 32 years in politics and government is enough. Support Trump's policies or retire already. Paid for by Hoosier Leadership for America.
At the IHSAA, we're proud to have partners who share our vision of building a strong Indiana. I'm Commissioner Paul Neidig.
And I'm Rafael Sanchez, Chief Impact Officer of Old National Bank, founded and headquartered in Evansville, Indiana. We couldn't be prouder of our Hoosier heritage.
And Hoosiers couldn't love high school sports more.
That's why it's important to us as a Hoosier bank to invest in high school sports. We offer financial literacy programs that help student athletes make educated financial decisions once their playing days are over.
The association is committed to keeping high school sports focused on education first. The life lessons we teach help student athletes develop both in the game and in life.
And that's a win for every Hoosier.
Thanks to partners like Old National Bank, the future of Indiana looks strong.
Support education-based athletics by buying a ticket to your high school's athletic events.
This is investing in our future.
This is building up Indiana.
This is your IHSAA.
We're just going to live with this wet basement forever, or are we going to get it fixed by the pros? Call Swankco, 317-407-1868, SwankcoLLC.com.
Join us every Friday right around 5:50 for Beer Sample Friday.
Brought to you by Thompson Furniture and Mattress in Columbus, home of free delivery within 75 miles of their store.
93 WIBC Mobile News. On the level, on the go.
Death and destruction. I'm Jarrett Lewis. This report is brought to you by Moss Home Improvements. At least 2 people are confirmed dead from the severe weather that hit Illinois and northwest Indiana Tuesday night.
It looked like a very large tornado, destructive tornado that had the capability of doing significant damage.
Scott Baker from the National Weather Service in Chicago. The town of Lake Village in Newton County was hardest hit, with plenty of downed trees and power lines and damaged homes. Winds were as strong as 60 miles per hour at times. An advisory remains in effect till 5 p.m. today. Some flood advisories are also issued throughout the state. A 15-year-old is recovering after being shot at an apartment on Indy's far east side late Tuesday night. Around the same time, IMPD officers found a woman dead in the backyard of a home on the west side. Her injuries consistent with trauma. And Connor Daly is returning to the Indianapolis 500. It was announced today that he has a ride with Dreyer and Reinbold to drive in the 110th running. I'm Jarrett Lewis on the level, on the go, and on WIBC.com.
Inside Boston, families packed what they could, unsure who would rule their streets next.
WIBC celebrates the spirit of 76. Brought to you by the WIBC Daily Newsletter.
March 11th, 1776. As British evacuation plans quietly formed, Loyalist civilians prepared to leave alongside the army. Homes were abandoned, businesses shuttered, lives uprooted. For many, allegiance to the crown meant exile. The revolution wasn't only moving armies, it was displacing people. Independence would pull friends and families apart, long after the cannons fell silent.
The spirit of 76. History remembered. Freedom celebrated. Have the latest headlines and show content delivered to your inbox daily. Sign up at WIBC.com.
So teens are on their phones nearly a third of the school day. Social media, games, endless scrolling. Everybody's pointing their fingers at the schools and the students. Here's the reality. This starts at home. Parents set the tone, right? Kids are allowed to stay glued to their devices all the time. There's no enforcement. No one teaches them self-discipline. Don't be surprised when they're checking TikTok between math problems. Schools can't parent for you. They can't force focus and instill values that you don't teach at home. There was a new study that came out that said teens are using their smartphones constantly during school hours, not just on lunch breaks, not just between classes. They're checking their phones hourly throughout the day. About 1/3 of the school day is spent on their phones, roughly 2 hours during instructional time.
I mean, this is... I'm sorry, I may be a little old school with this thought and this opinion, but schools get to set the rules. That's the way it works. We don't let kids tell us how to run things. And I get it. If I was 15 years old and, a sophomore in high school again in 2026, yeah, of course I'd want to have my phone with me. And of course, as a 15-year-old, I'd be like, no, it's fine. It's cool. I can have my phone with me all day. Too bad. You don't get to set the rules when you're 15 years old. The adults get to set the rules. So, of course, if schools feel like the phones are distracting, absolutely. Now, I think where you will get a lot of pushback from parents is banning them entirely, because as a parent,
Right.
I know that we always felt better that if there was an emergency, anything up to, a threat of terrorism or an active shooter in the school, all the way down to something simple, hey, my car won't start after school. I want, most parents want their kids to be able to communicate when there is a problem. So I think that as long as the laws and the regulations don't go to an outright ban entirely, I think that this just is just a ton of common sense.
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to usage, right? It's the bottom line. The phones aren't ruining the kids. It's the bad habits and the lack of the guidance and the absent accountability. And parents who want their kids to succeed need to take the lead on this. They need to set the boundaries and model the behavior they want to see. The kids, they repeat what they see their parents do. And if your child is trying to having a conversation with you and you're just glued to your phone, not paying attention, what kind of signal is that sending to your kid? So you've got to lead by example with this.
Yeah, and I think that, there was this bill in the recent, term of the General Assembly to pass a restrictions on this. And I think, again, it's what I laid out here. That's not banning it entirely, but it is saying, hey, you got to put your phone away during school hours. And that passed the House and Senate, and Mike Braun signed it into law. Actually, just a couple of days ago, late last week, he signed it into law. So that'll be going into effect likely this summer with all the rest of the new laws that are written usually go into effect.
So this is something that I thought was different and interesting. We talk often about healthcare and the horrible state of healthcare. There's a new research that says there are more kids going to the ER, the emergency room, for tooth pain and preventative dental problems than any other issue.
I think we've seen this a lot, and if you've been to the doctor a lot, since the pandemic, things have changed. For starters, much more difficult to get an appointment with any doctor, even your general practice doctor. I remember 10 or 15 years ago, if you were sick, you call your doctor, your family doctor in the morning, and they could likely squeeze you in the afternoon and, take a look at you and get you right and on your way. Those days, for the most part, or at least based on my experience, are long gone. A lot of what family doctors just do are kind of assess you and then refer you to specialists. But when it comes to dentistry especially, I don't think there's nearly as much emergency dentist options on the table like
Not
there
as there
are as
used
an
to be.
emergency
Yep.
room, and certainly not as there used to be. And so it makes sense if you've got some sort of dental emergency, the emergency room may be your only option at this
Well, the
point.
one thing that the emergency room is going to do is they're going to provide the temporary pain relief, right? Like medications or even antibiotics. But the experts are saying that the ERs generally can't treat the underlying dental issue. There is also a shortage of pediatric dental professionals, especially in rural areas. And they say that pediatric ER visits for dental issues has risen almost 60% among children that are under 15 years old between the years 2019 and 22. And what do you remember happening between those years?
Pandemic?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They're saying that the conditions have worsened ever since the pandemic. A lot of the professionals in that industry, they don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, and I get it. You made a really good point there that if you do have a dental emergency, look, I'm not expecting to go to the ER and for them to extract teeth and perform a root canal or whatever. What you're looking for is some temporary relief until I can see a dentist to where they take care of the underlying problem.
My name is Casey. That is Jim. New segment. What's your problem? Jim, what's your problem?
I'll tell you what my problem is today.
Before you tell me your problem, do you want answers or do you want empathy? Do you want a solution or do you want sympathy?
You know what? In this case, I want action. I want a solution.
Oh, okay.
So the General Assembly last year passed a law that basically said that students on campus can no longer use a student ID as a form of voter ID.
Correct.
When you go to the ballot box. And now there is a student here in Indiana, in the Southern District Court of Indiana, that is asking for a preliminary injunction to allow student IDs. Like if I go to IU and I've got my IU ID to use that to vote, that's my problem. It goes back to what we talked about with the SAVE Act earlier. Voter ID is supported by the vast majority of Americans, but the idea that I could use a non-governmental issue ID to vote is ridiculous to me, and this is my problem this morning, and state attorneys are arguing for this federal judge to deny this request to block this ban on using college IDs to be able to vote.
Soon enough, we're going to ask you what your problem is, but right now we turn it to former Notre Dame football coach Brian Kelly, and we ask him, Brian Kelly, what's your problem?
It's hard. I mean, we had just finished building our dream home, my wife and I. You could walk out our home and look at the Golden Dome. We tore down an apartment complex to build this beautiful home. We had no intentions of leaving Notre Dame. I was the longest and still are the longest serving head coach, all-time winningest coach. We had no idea that this was going to come upon us, or we wouldn't have done those things. So they're really difficult. I think what the ultimate decision was for us is that we got the program back to where it needed to be. Our deal coming in was we need to get this program back to being an elite program. Everybody associates success with winning national championships or winning Super Bowls or World Series. I get that. I totally get that. But that wasn't our mindset. Our mindset was to get this program back and be consistent force in college football. And so in some instances, we felt like our job had been completed. And we had one more challenge left, and that was to win a national championship. And so that's kind of what the mindset was, leading into that decision.
Mm-hmm. Brian Kelly's problem was that he didn't want to leave Notre Dame, but then chose to leave Notre Dame.
Yeah, here was the difference there. LSU took an entire dump truck full of money and backed it up into his driveway and just threw it all over his front lawn. It's amazing what money. Look, Brian Kelly's been pretty quiet since he got fired as the head football coach at LSU, and I'm going to make a recommendation to you, Brian Kelly.
Keep it that way?
You should continue to be quiet because you're not doing yourself any favors by opening your mouth at this point in time.
Hey, speaking of Notre Dame, they have put out the information about the funeral and memorial details for Lou Holtz, who died on March 4th. The public visitation going to be held Sunday on the 15th from 7 until 10 p.m. at the Basilica of the Sacred Heart on the campus of Notre Dame. You're listening to 93 WIBC.
Greetings from R&R Agency, your Indiana health insurance pros, and a sincere thank you to our loyal customers for helping us to another record year. We recently saved a 62-year-old retiring couple over $800 monthly when compared to their COBRA offerings. We recently saved a family of 4 over $400 monthly when compared to their $7,500 deductible program on the ACA, and you know that's still Obamacare. We recently saved a small 4-man manufacturing company over $1,000 monthly and gave them better coverage. We feature coverages guaranteed to age 65, low out-of-pocket expenses, the largest networks in the country, and you can sign up anytime. If you are retiring early, self-employed, or need coverage for your small group, call us at 317-563-0868 or go to rragency.org. If you don't call us, we can't help you. What do you got to lose? Call us 317-563-0868 or go to rragency.org. As always, God bless America, common sense government, and peace through strict.
You love spring and indies, so don't spend it painting. Do what your neighbor Mike did. He called Rhino Shield.
Our home is basically a contemporary, and we just started noticing that the paint was just fading and just looked like garbage. We had received a postcard from Rhino Shield, and we decided to take a look at it.
Rhino Shield's formulated for our specific climate here in Indiana.
The process with Rhino Shield and their crew, they were just very conscientious. We had problems in the past with painters. They leave debris and everything. Well, we didn't have that with Rhino Shield.
Way better than paint, backed by a 25-year warranty. Right now, get the guaranteed protection of Rhino Shield for 15% off the regular price.
The thing about Rhino Shield, the heat gain has been reduced, and we save $70 a month. You don't hear that about any type of paint.
Here's Rhino Shield's Shane Smith.
This offer is limited, so call me at 888-RHINO-41. That's 888-RHINO-41.
Don't paint.
Don't vinyl.
Go Rhino.
Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
Your Pacers return to Gainbridge Fieldhouse for back-to-back games.
Up fakes the three, drives, and he went up and under beautifully. Spun it off the glass and drew the foul.
Watch the Blue and Gold take on the Suns Thursday at 7, followed by a rivalry showdown versus the Knicks Friday at 7:30.
Tunnel comes hard down the left side. A beautiful blind bounce pass. Back into the lane. It's gobbled up and laid in by Neesmith.
Don't miss your chance to be in on the action.
Nemhard from the right edge beat the shot clock and hit a three.
Grab tickets today at pacers.com/tickets.
Veterans and active duty service members. When your call to service ends, your mission doesn't have to. Go from GI to IT in just a few months at My Computer Career. Prepare for a high-demand career in cybersecurity, protecting people, systems, and institutions from real cyber threats. Cyber warriors are needed now. Will you answer the call? Go to mycomputercareer.edu/CWP to learn more. That's mycomputercareer.edu/CWP, an elite CompTIA certification partner. VA education benefits are available to those who qualify.
Honey, that flu keeping you up? Did you take NyQuil Intense Flu?
Nah, I got this. Okay, I don't got this.
Yeah, you need NyQuil Intense Flu.
Undo your flu with NyQuil Intense Flu. NyQuil Intense Flu provides powerful relief of your flu symptoms so you can sleep.
You do got this.
NyQuil Intense Flu. The nighttime sniffling, aching fever, best sleep with the flu, medicine. Use as directed, keep out of reach of children.
If Ernest Hemingway was alive today, would he say this to you?
Shakespeare, Mark Twain, Edgar Allan Poe, all great writers. And after reading your book, I simply must add you to the list.
Wait, you don't have a book yet. So make a free call to Page Publishing. Turn your book idea into publishing gold.
800-215-6818. 800-215-6818 That's 800-215-6818.
The Attorney General's office wants to put your money back in your pocket. Visit indianaunclaimed.gov and search for yourself, your loved ones, or your business. It's fast, easy, and free.
Relive a classic on the big screen. Stand By Me, the film and its stars 40 years later, comes to Old National Center on Saturday, June 13th. See the movie and hear from Corey Feldman, Jerry O'Connell, and Will Wheaton live on stage. Get your tickets now at WIBC.com.
Entertaining us on screens doesn't make you qualified to tell us how to run a country. Most people see right through it. You've got celebrities that yammer on about politics, and it is a reminder that fame does not equal expertise. Here you have Gene Simmons, yes, from the rock band Kiss, and he's saying that celebrities like Ben Stiller should just shut up about politics.
I know right now Ben Stiller is calling out the president, saying he doesn't want him to use his movie clips for war propaganda. I mean, it sounds like a lot of people are kind of, criticizing Trump, like Hollywood right now, over this war thing. Is that fair?
Yeah, because everybody in the world should listen to what actors and comedians say, because they're so qualified. Basically, shut the up. Do your art and shut up. Nobody's interested in your opinions. That includes me. Who I vote for, who I like. Who the do you think you are? People in America work hard for their living, and they don't want to be lectured to by people who live in mansions and drive Rolls Royces. It's time for everybody in the entertainment industry to shut their pie hole and just do your art. Nobody cares what you think. I don't.
Yeah, he's right. Most Americans don't care what celebrities think or what their take is, because they're typically shallow, they're inconsistent, and many times they're performative.
Yeah, and I think Gene Simmons echoes what a lot of Americans have said for a long time about political opinions coming out of Hollywood. But here's the thing, it's not going to stop. And it's because the Hollywood elites, and this is true for any elite, whether it's financial elite or political elite or cultural elite, they think they're smarter than you. Everyone in Hollywood just thinks you're a bunch of dumb hicks living in red flyover states and just uneducated. And if we can just educate you, we're the smart ones. We obviously have all the right answers. And eventually, if we keep educating these idiot hillbillies who live in the middle of the country, they'll come along and see our opinions. Yeah, that's not going to happen, but you're never going to be able to convince the people in Hollywood that we're anything more than just a bunch of dumb hicks from flyover states.
Well, they've been spending decades getting rewarded for entertainment, not deep analysis. It goes back to the old meme, I don't trust your opinions on the government because I know you don't do your research.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody accuses many people in Hollywood of being smart.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for listening today. This is 93 WIBC.
Are you within 5 years of filing for Social Security? When you file impacts more than your benefits check. It could also impact your taxes, IRA, and 401k withdrawals, spousal benefits, and your Medicare premiums. Learn the best time for you to file for your benefits with a free customized Social Security analysis from Bill Demery, your